Hey everybody, my name is John Bell, and this is the Harbinger Report. I've got a special guest I brought on for you today. I'm going to cover some news real quick and then introduce our guest. So, people are starting to report dengue fever outbreaks in Florida. After all the mosquitoes that Bill Gates has released out into the wild, the GMO stuff. That didn't go well before when they did that with bees, and that turned into killer bees. So it's no surprise that you're going to see mosquito related infections start going through the roof. Leading security disaster rescue expert warns government and major corporations are secretly preparing for civil war and martial law. We're starting to hear this more and more from multiple sources. I brought on a source not too long ago that said that his company he's working for is bringing heavy materials into these bunkers that are placed inside of buildings, inside of mountains. Sorry, that they have to go through 15-minute tunnels just to get to. Okay, in stunning letter to Congress, Zuckerberg admits Biden Harris pressured Facebook to censor content. That's called election meddling. All right. Now, everybody swore up and down that the election wasn't stolen from Trump, but you can sway votes by the information people have access to. So when they're controlling what people can see and can't see, that is election tampering. This is something that he should go to prison over, as you and I surely would. A new study finds that women store the DNA of previous partners for life. That means when women have sex outside of marriage, they're storing up DNA from all the sexual partners that they have. And that DNA will be used in the formation of children in the future. So that's an important note. And I think also goes back to the Christian values of why we should have marriage and not just this leftist thing of, free sex and no marriage. God knows what he's doing in protecting people. US voting machines proven hackable in conference. Yeah, shocker there, right? Um, but it's the absolute truth. Remember, we pointed out before the Dominion voting machines were made in China, and Nancy Pelosi's husband sat on the board of Dominion. No conflict of interest there. Hundreds of non-citizens registered to vote illegally in Ohio. We're seeing more and more data like this coming out on a regular basis, which is really bad. I had another one in there that I think I failed to enter. On similar statistics, you get the idea. Kamala unveils new policy to ban all assault weapons. Excuse me, I talked about this before. She's said that she's going to use executive orders to ban assault weapons. By the way, Hillary Clinton, in emails released by WikiLeaks, had also said that in her election against Trump. She said that if she had won within 6 months, she would have signed executive orders to remove all assault weapons from our country, whether Congress, our courts, or the Supreme Court would do it or not. She said she would do it herself with executive orders. All right. Now, one thing I would like to point out, two things I'd like to point out. One, executive orders really are unconstitutional. The entire reason we have a separation of powers from the legislative, judicial, and executive branch is so the executive branch could not enact legislation, could not enact its own laws. All right. It's an abuse of power that we become normalized with over time. Now, in certain emergency situations, like we're in the middle of war or great crisis, there are some exemptions to that, and that's where they came up from. But it's become a tyrannical thing that's being used in a negative way for our country. The executive branch should not have the power to enact permanent legislation, and that's what they're doing, and Congress is allowing them to get away with it, and so is the Supreme Court. That's one issue. Second issue is Second Amendment is not for hunters or shooters. It's for a government turning tyrannical against its people. And if we see anything in America today, it's that the government is turning tyrannical against its own people, right? So if you need to be reminded, When a nation mistrusts its citizens with guns, it's sending a clear message. It no longer trusts its citizens. Such a government has evil plans, which is called tyranny, to take over the government. No free man shall be deprived the use of arms. All right. It's to protect themselves against tyranny in government. And that's what we're facing. When a government takes away a citizen's right to bear arms, it becomes a citizen's duty to take away the government's right to govern. And that's where we're at. Last point on that, children need to be taught the real history of the world. They need to know what happened in the past when only one-sided government has access to guns. All right. So very important there. Moving on. Trying to get caught up. Okay, so another reason that we need this in our country is with the immigration problem that we have going on. And we see a tyranny going on in the world right now where the immigration system is going to it's attacking the entire West and in multiple countries. In fact, England is now saying that they will put people in prison in their country, and they are. There's several videos. I played some last week, including now they're saying that they're going to go after U.S. citizens if they talk about Muslim gang rapes and violence, Muslim violence from the immigrants in their country. All right. And we see the same thing that's going on in France and all across the West in the EU right now. This was a video by the UK government that they're trying to entice immigrants, Muslim immigrants, to come there by using children as a lure to get them to come here, trying to say they can have sex with kids. It's disgusting. This is a video I've got about a grooming gang of Muslims that are at a local park taking very creepy footage of children in the park.
What are we doing, guys?
We are just enjoying.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just enjoying what?
We're here for picnic.
Picnic.
Yeah.
Where's your picnic stuff, guys?
In the car.
In the car.
Yeah.
Right. You're here for a picnic?
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. I'm looking at you. The guy with the camera? Yeah, you right there. Yeah, can I see the videos?
Yeah.
Show me the videos.
Okay.
No, I'm serious. Are you deleting them right now? Is that what you're doing, guys?
This is private. What do you think we would work?
You know exactly what you're doing. You're creeping all the girls here. I watched you guys. I watched this guy. I watched him watching my daughters with his camera.
Okay, sorry.
No. You don't come to a beach and videotape the girls. You know exactly. You can delete them all you want, but I got you guys on film now.
Okay, so you get the idea.
Now, locals in rural Ireland are watching masked foreign men being planted all around the country in sites which seem to resemble military camps. Locals are living in fear. So I had to find out today what on earth is going on in Ireland. And joining me now to discuss this is the member of the Irish Freedom Party, Herman Kelly. Herman, welcome to the show. Always a delight to have you on. Now, the video, which we're about to show on screen now, has been viewed, getting on for 1.5 million times. On social media. Herman Kelly, can you explain to us what on earth is going on? This appears to be military-aged men dressed like militia. They look like they're in the army, parading around rural Ireland. Please explain what on earth's going on.
The hard to believe part, Martin, is this is not an unusual occurrence in Ireland in the last number of months, because this is in Thornton Hall. But there's been a number of incidents where you have foreign men wearing balaclavas coming round.
Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is this isn't just in the U.S. This is going on around the world right now. And what's happened is these immigrants are being weaponized against our country, and militantly so. The majority of people coming in across our borders, all right, not to mention all the hundreds of thousands of missing children that are also being abused in this system. But the majority of people coming across our open borders are military-aged men. And what people don't understand is many of these people are found with UN military ID cards, all right? And they're also coming in with military vehicles. As I pointed out last week on my channel, we have military UN vehicles being delivered. And astonishingly, what does it say there on the front? Weapons enforcement. Why are UN military vehicles being sent here that say weapons enforcement on the front of them? It's not for a good reason. Our government is planning for civil war, and they know that U.S. troops will not attack and put civilians into prison camps and take away their rights, but they know that a foreign army will. So they've brought a foreign army into our country, and we are doing nothing about it. And that is a slippery slope towards losing any freedoms that we have, or any idea of freedom left. Illegal aliens horde now hijack school buses as apartment complexes across the U.S. are taken over by armed Venezuelan gangs. So you've heard the stories that's going on in Denver and Aurora, where I used to live, by the way, where they're saying that these armed military gangs from Venezuela are taking over apartment complexes. This is very bad. Why is our police doing nothing about it? Our military is doing nothing about it. This was a video I wanted to show, but I couldn't get it. I couldn't get the video. But what's happening also in Aurora, in Denver, you have people that show up at your door claim that they're with Amazon. But as soon as you open the door to receive your package, a gang of these Venezuelan gang members force themselves into your house to rob you. So that is going on, and it's going on across the country, but it's happening more in Colorado, in Aurora. Pope Francis says that if you oppose immigration, that is a grave sin. Well, as a Catholic theologian myself, I will tell you that Pope Francis is a communist globalist, and he is no friend to the church whatsoever. He's not supporting Christ. He's supporting the communist globalist takeover of our country and the world. He also said if you own a gun, you're not a Christian. That's funny. He has his own private army with the Swiss Guard. Why don't you tell them to go away? And you don't see him inviting all those people into the Vatican, do you? Other than just to give a talk and kick them back out. And he's got bigger walls than most people have right there in Vatican Square as well. But anyway, enough of that. I just wanted to cover some of the highlights in that. But I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest so we can get on with our topic for this evening. Plus, he's on limited time. So, everybody, this is E. He has his own channel called Efficient in the Field, and I highly suggest you check that out. I'll provide a link later to that channel in the bottom of this show when I can get to that done after this. But E, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience? Give them a brief bio on your background. And then we'll get into the topic for tonight.
Okay, well, I'm glad to be here, John. The bios, to keep it nice and short, I've basically been a survivalist for about 4 decades now. Not sure where it came from. Might have been reading Soldier of Fortune magazines when sitting on my dad's toilet when he wasn't there. They had all those ads in the back. Were like, survive this, survive that. And any rate, I got older and joined the service when I was a young man. I did a short stint as an airborne paratrooper. I kicked butt while I was in. I got my Ranger tab, expert infantry badge, air assault, airborne, all that stuff, extended PT test scores, and, just did really well, got out. And part of the reason I joined the service was to get skills that would help me if I had to survive certain situations. So that's really why I joined. Got out and did the normal new veteran thing, kind of bounced around between some different careers, and ended up working in executive protection. So I found my way into that and worked in there for 5 years total. And a portion of that, a good portion, almost half of it, was spent in management. And I eventually ended up getting out of there, bought a remote piece of property with my wife, and we moved out and homesteaded. We're talking like a untouched piece of property in a remote part of the country. So no roads on it, nothing. We had to do all that work. And that really affected me. Those 2 years, it very much had an amazing impact on me when it comes to like survival knowledge and skills and all that kinds of stuff, and living a different kind of life where you're not plugged into everything day in and day out. And we ended up after those 2 years homesteading on that property, we ended up traveling for the majority of the year, and we kind of use that as home base. We'd come back and spend time there when the weather was nice, and when it wasn't, we were traveling. But while traveling, we spent the huge majority of our time in remote places, and living a very rewarding but kind of like a hard life. Trying to put food on the table ourselves, and foraging and doing all that kind of thing. So I've got about 9 years now total in that kind of living. And then a little over 3 years ago, with everything that was going on, my wife and I decided to switch gears, and we actually kind of had a plan to settle down and stay in one spot for a while because the kids were getting older, and we wanted to give them a chance to basically put some roots down somewhere, and so that launching them as adults would be easier. But also, it was a lot of what was going on in this country and just the trajectory. You know, we wanted to be in one place. We wanted to start prepping, and we wanted to make sure that us and the kids would be ready for hard times that definitely seem like they're coming. And then I want to say it was like the end of last summer, really. I had a dream, and I felt like it was a prophetic dream. And it took me probably 2-3 months to decode it in my own brain and to understand what I'm supposed to be doing. But I feel like God put me in an interesting position with the knowledge that I had. And just so your viewers know, when you live far from the asphalt like I do, there's flies all over the place. You're going to see me, like doing this kind of thing throughout the podcast. Um, but I felt like God put me in a situation where I had a lot of knowledge about hard times. I've lived a life that in ways has like mimicked SHTF for a number of years. And I feel like the best thing that I can do to help people is to share what I know. And so I started a YouTube and a TikTok, and that's what I've been doing. And that's how you
That's awesome. And yeah, so were you at Benning then?
Oh no, I was a Bragg.
Okay. Um uh, so and you went on a sniper school too, is that right?
No, I didn't do sniper school. I had invites though to battalion scouts. I had invites to 82nd LURS. I had invites to 10th group. I believe it was 10th group that was there, but I met some SF dudes in Ranger School. And so I had invites to do any of the high speed stuff I wanted to do. And what really turned me off was I just got back. Ranger School, for those of you that don't know, is like the premier combat leadership school. And I just got back from that, and my platoon sergeant took me to talk to the first sergeant to get me pushed into PLDC because I was the first PFC to graduate Ranger School when they opened it to PFCs. So
Okay.
it's kind of like a big deal.
Right.
And I could tell a lot of stories about it, like how I really wasn't prepared to succeed in that school bifore I
Right,
went in and
right.
all
No,
that. But
absolutely. Absolutely. It's hard
yeah,
as hell. People don't understand it's one of the hardest courses in the military.
yeah, I really can give a lot of credit to a guy that I met in, and I unfortunately I don't remember his name, but there was a young guy in Scouts that I met in pre-ranger course, and I got right into pre-ranger, and I was like, man, I don't know
Is
this
that
stuff.
Rip?
It's kind of like the same thing to a degree. Just it was 82nd pre-ranger. It's like they
Oh,
organize it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like almost 2 weeks. That's designed to test and see if you're ready, like if you can go to
Yeah,
ranger school and pass it.
right.
And because I didn't know a lot of the stuff, this one guy, he stayed up late at night and he helped square me away. And you know, yeah, he definitely helped me get through the course. But yeah, you know,
They
it's an
did the
interesting thing
opposite.
to do.
They did the
But
opposite. Go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
They sent me to PLDC school so that I could go for ranger school, but I ended up losing my I went through PLDC, but I ended up losing my slot for ranger, which really kind of pissed me off. So
Yeah,
I wanted
they were
I
really
wanted the
hurting for
free tab.
recruits.
I wanted that 3-tab rocker. But you know, one thing that was funny, I talked to a buddy of mine that went on to 82nd, and I had more jumps in my unit than he did in 82nd. I thought that was insane. But
Huh.
anyway, um, well, getting on to the topic tonight. Um, so yeah, I wanted to talk about the Trump assassination, which severely, affected me, and I'm sure many people in our country, with the fact that one of the big themes that the topics I cover on the show, as I mentioned earlier, is that there's basically a communist takeover that I claim. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that I myself claim is taken over in our country right now and in our government, and that they've been using that as a means to weaponize the judicial branch and the alphabet agencies, the federal agencies, to target and go after their political opponents. And we see that going on with Trump with the raid in Mar-a-Lago, which was absolute BS. And by the way, then they accused Biden of the same thing, and they said he was actually guilty, even though Trump was innocent. But he wasn't mentally competent enough for Biden to stand trial, so they just let him go. But yet they were still going to have him. He wasn't mentally competent enough to stand for trial, but they were still at the time running him for the next president of the country, for the next president race. How does that make any sense? I mean, you can't be any more backwards in our country right now. But we see the abuse going on, and even in the judicial system. Finally, the Supreme Court has some integrity left, even though they negated their job to look into election interference in the Trump election. They now the left says that they said there was no evidence. That's an absolute lie. What they said is we're not going to even we're not going to entertain any evidence. We're not even going to look at it. So that was one of the biggest abdications of authority and negligence I think that's ever happened in the United States history. How can you take something as serious as that and say we're not even going to investigate it? But at least there was some integrity on their part, and they stood up against the Trump trials that are obviously completely felonious. And people are screaming, "Oh, how can we have a felon running for president or in the White House?" Because they're trumped up charges. Yes, pun intended. They're trumped up charges. They even changed the laws and the rules so that they could accuse him of these things in these districts. And any judge or lawyer in the world will tell you that he should win all of that on appeal, that none of that is founded. It's just being weaponized as a way to.
Lost you for like 15 seconds there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So,
cut out.
okay. So it was fine on my end, by the way.
Hmm.
So we see they're weaponizing the judicial branch, and now, as I was telling E before this, and in the back room before the show, we've seen a new step this week where not only have the globalists weaponized the judicial system in the U.S. to target political opponents, but we're starting to see that take place in other countries now, where other countries are saying, "Hey, if you exercise free speech, we're going to put you in prison in our countries." And we see that just happened to the founder of Telegram, right? Who was trapped. Who Macron said, "Come here for a private dinner," and when he showed up for that dinner, they slapped the cuffs on him. All right, completely. I mean, that's pretty low. And now they're threatening France and Brazil are threatening Elon Musk, saying that they want to have him arrested. For free speech, because the biggest threat to communism is free speech.
Yeah. It's talk about shooting yourself in the foot, because I feel like there should be a level of retaliation against what's going on. Like if we look at what the progressive left has done with targeting people, anybody that says anything they don't want to hear, they do their best to cancel you. And for those of you that are paying attention to watching podcasts like this, it's time for you to start putting your money where your mouth is, and to return fire. Companies that are going to like Disney, that are going to push whatever agenda and play these dirty tactics. It's like, stop giving them money, you know. And like Brazil, if I was Elon Musk, man, I'd shut down their Starlink service so fast I would be done. I would bail out of that country, man.
What he's
You know.
referring to is Brazil just said that they were going to seize the assets of Elon Musk in Starlink in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said that he should return fire. We're not talking violence or weapons. We're saying that we
Nope.
need to fight back in other ways that we can, legal and
Hmm.
lawfully. But he's saying that he should shut down, yeah, with your checkbook. And
Money talks.
Money talks. Money does talk. Even with the corruption and we see going on with communist takeover and the DEI woke Disney, money talks.
Hmm.
You know, they're getting shut down. And thank God people are denying their films when they take beloved characters and franchises and destroy them just to add their own personal political agenda to them and politicize them. Thank God people are turning those down and they're bombing at the box office.
Yeah,
That's how
they've
we
been
make money.
losing lots of money.
Yes,
And you would think that a large corporation like that that exists to make a profit would wrap their head around it, but are they going to wrap their head around it? There's something I think is really important that we probably should talk about too, John, because
yeah,
of what you were just talking about, the communist takeover thing. Here's the thing, and I think everyone's heard this saying: if something's not working and you keep doing it over and over and over again, what is that? It's the
definition.
definition of insanity.
Right.
Well, every single far left movement over the course of the last 120 years, like, there's plenty of proof in the pudding that this doesn't work, but the people that are pushing these kind of agendas, they're insane. They're literally like following the definition of insanity. They're going to keep doing it. They think they're going to turn out like with a different result in the end, and they're not. They always lead to the same exact place, and I feel like that is happening in America. I definitely agree with
Right.
you that that's where we're going. Communism.
Yeah, even President Putin in Russia says that communism fails. It doesn't work. And that's why Russia's sworn, you won't hear this in the mainstream media, but Putin says Russia has sworn off socialism, has sworn off communism, and they've re-embraced Christianity and capitalism, you
Yeah,
know.
they have. They've he's made some really interesting moves lately. Something I saw that kind of shocked me was that he put out the word that anybody in the West that wants to escape the crazy leftist nonsense can apply for a visa.
Yeah. Isn't that something? Russia's actually saying if you're tired of tyranny and you want family traditional values, we welcome you here.
Mm-hmm.
We give
Mm-hmm.
you an escape from tyranny and communism, and we welcome you to a place that believes in freedom and traditional family values. And what people don't understand is it's Christianity that created the United States. It was Christian values that created the United States. It was Christian values that created the success and dominance of the United States. And as we turn away from those Christian values more and more and more, and God consequently, so our country goes down the tube and falls until it will be destroyed if it's not stopped and changed. So
Yep.
I think those are very important points. So, on the Trump assassination, tell me this: what are some of your thoughts on what took place that day?
Okay.
Everyone, you've heard all the theories and the stuff that's been going on, you know, in the news regarding the situation. First of all, people are trying to claim that Trump wasn't actually shot and that was all faked, you know. But luckily, a lot of that has died out. But what's amazing is even though he was shot, and by the grace of God, his life spared, you know, even Zuckerberg talked about how triumphant he was when he jumped right back up with the fist in the air, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I saw the video, the very first clip, probably 2 minutes after it was posted. And immediately I was like, he either was shot in the ear or grazed on the side of the face. That was my initial impression. I showed it to my wife and I was like, I bet you he just got shot in the ear, grazed on the side of the face. So I was like, yeah, I'm right, later. And I did do a little video on it. I probably gave it like 24 hours or something like that after the video came out because I wanted a little bit of more information to come out. And since then, it's just it's been like a waterfall of bad press for the Secret Service and even local law enforcement and all of it. And so, in my experience, having worked in executive protection for 5 years, and does that make me like an ultimate expert on the topic? No, no, but it makes me a journeyman. It makes me someone that's proficient and could look at a situation like this and point out the glaring faults. And so we know what we know now is that they knew this guy was there walking around scoping everything out far in advance of Trump taking the stage.
Yep.
And he never should have been allowed on the stage. And so, let me share this with the viewers too, because a lot of people don't understand this because they haven't worked in this field. When stuff like this starts to happen, the principal is not in.
Oh, you cut out. Um, it froze. His connection must not be doing that good. Mine's showing strong and going right now. He
Oh,
should come back with us
my
in a minute.
my feed
Hey,
cut out. Okay,
yeah, you cut out.
so so when it comes down to an issue of safety, I'm in charge. The client, the principal, they're not in charge anymore. We're now doing it my way. You want to fire me later? Fine, fire me later, but you're still alive. And a lot of these agents that were on this job obviously can't wrap their head around that. And I mean, we should get into the whole DEI part of it as well, but it's like
Oh, we will.
above and beyond that, it's like nobody said anything about this. Like nobody decided to pull that trigger and say, sorry, like it's not safe. You can't go on stage. Like we're leaving immediately. That's what they should have done. They should have literally put him in the car and taken him to a safe location. That's one of the first things that they should have done, not only did they not do that, but they continued to receive warnings about this guy. Law enforcement continued to watch him operate, putting a ladder up to get on the roof. I mean, the footage I've seen now, it looks like the guy was walking around at the base of the building with a rifle in his hands. Let me throw this out there for your viewers as well. Like, I don't consider myself to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm not. There's what I know,
Guilty.
there's what I don't know, and then there's what I think is going on based on what I know.
Sure.
Okay? And like anybody should be able to wrap their head around how massive of a failure this is. And like how many coincidences do we need to stack themselves together to put the dots together and to be able to say that there was intentional failures that occurred that day?
See, I always say I don't as a former police officer, all right, and an investigator, I learned and not only that, I switched from my unit to military intel, all right. And
Hmm.
and what I learned from all that is intelligence is all about pattern recognition, right? It's what it's all about. Gathering information, pattern recognition. So and then you follow chains and motives, et cetera, based on that. And it's almost always follow the money too, right? So
Yeah.
and who had the motive, right? So that
Hmm.
said, I always say I don't believe. I mean, I believe in conspiracy only because that's the very nature of how evil operates. Evil doesn't say, "Hey, I'm here to kill you and your family and your children." No,
Yep.
evil says, "I'm a good. I'm here to help you." When its designs and plans are really to manipulate you to you're vulnerable and then attack. Okay,
And
so
conspiracy is a real thing.
it's a real thing.
It really exists. Like I was working a job a couple decades ago now, actually, and came out and two guys were vandalizing my truck and they were stealing my stuff. Well, I pinned one of them between the door and he wanted to fight. So the other guy ran, but I ended up subduing the dude that wanted to fight me until the police showed up. But when the police got there, they arrested him, they found the other guy, and they charged him with conspiracy. And here's the thing, you would have to have your head totally in the clouds to think that there are people, both elected and non elected people in this government, that are not working together to achieve the same goals, whether or not you know about it or not. right?
Right.
Right? Like that's what it is. That's what conspiracy
Uh,
is, and it's
some
happening.
people will call that's what politics is.
Yeah, I mean, politics is just like filled to the brim with conspiracy.
Oh, it's trading favors, and it's not
Well,
public. It's not public, the
mm-mm.
favors they're trading. I say, look,
Oh
this
no.
is absolute proof of conspiracy. The Bible tells us that mankind conspired to kill God. It says conspired to kill God. They didn't come out and said they were going to kill him. They came up with a plan in the dark to kill him. All right.
Mhm.
But
And
even
evil things happen in the dark.
evil things happen in the dark. See, that's where cancer spreads. That's where mold spreads in the dark, not in the public. Here's another example. All right. This was a conspiracy. In fact, if you listen to one of my favorite speeches of J.F. Kennedy before his assassination, he said, we are facing a major conspiracy in our government to take over. That's his words.
Hmm.
He said, it's a conspiracy getting ready to take over our government. And guess what? They did. They
Yep.
did. So
He was going to go after the bankers because they were involved in the government too much.
and CIA. He said he was going to. He said he was going to destroy the Federal Reserve, which the bankers you're referring to, and then he said
Hmm.
he was going to destroy the CIA because he said that they were not serving America's interests but their own agenda, which at the time he said was working with a Nazi agenda. Same agenda today we would call the globalist agenda.
Hmm. Prescott Bush, right?
Prescott Bush.
Didn't he get arrested for? He got charged with felonies and was convicted, wasn't he, of dealing business deals with the Nazis?
Yeah, and he's accused of digging up Geronimo's skull from a military base that they claim is the skull they use at the Skull and Bones in Bohemian, and not Bohemian Grove, at Skull and Bones Secret Society at Yale.
Hmm.
They've
Hmm.
actually had Indians that have gone there and protested, demanding the skull back, but they're like, oh, we don't have it. But
Yeah.
yeah, Prescott Bush had a lot of crazy things on his plate. And if you look at the National Archives, it does connect their family to Nazi gold from Germany in World War II. That's where they
Hmm.
first got their money. Second place they got their money was in oil. Everyone knows that, in being from Texas, right? But what they don't know is, where did they get their oil money? From the Bin Laden family, the same
Hmm.
as Osama bin Laden. Do you think that's a coincidence? No. In fact, that goes back to what I was just stating a minute ago. I believe in conspiracy only because conspiracy is the nature of how evil operates and functions in the dark,
Hmm.
right? In
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
shadows, behind closed door, in secret societies. In fact, that's why JFK said secret societies are repugnant in an open and democratic and free society. And he
Yeah.
said, and we are opposed by these secret societies that are planning to destroy us.
Yeah. You don't have to be a theorist. There's nothing theory about it. Like conspiracies exist. Like they happen all the time, even in
Human
like
nature, all of
regular
history.
normal life.
Yep. And
Yeah.
history proves it over and over. Um, they say that the devil's greatest thing is that he convinces people he doesn't exist. Well, then he's going to do the same thing for the way his servants operate. See, the devil doesn't want you to believe that evil exists, because then you can do whatever you want and there's no consequences, right? There's no
Mm-hmm.
God, there's no punishment, there's no
There's no
ramification,
morality.
no morality, right? There's no,
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want, be free, be free. Yeah, the satanic laws, do what thou wills, the whole of the law, be free, do whatever you want. But if the devil exists, evil exists. If evil exists and the devil exists, conspiracy exists, because that's how the devil and his servants operate. In fact, it
Hmm.
was, again, the CIA that coined the term conspiracy theorist as a self censoring tool after the JFK Warren Commission, because
Yep.
people were questioning the official narrative, which
It's got a
still,
negative connotation. That's what
that's
they've
it.
worked towards, is
That's it.
conspiracy theorist has a
Yeah.
negative connotation.
And all it means is somebody who has the self reasoning skills to challenge the official narrative. Which, by the way, that's
How dare
called
you question that, John?
right, right.
How dare you? How dare you question your government? You must know some history.
Right. I mean, I keep trying to tell people America was founded on not trusting government. Not trusting government.
Yeah.
Not
You know,
trust. We do
here's
not trust our government. They do
yeah,
not have your
if
best interests in mind.
anyone that's paid attention at all and knows anything about history knows that if your government tells you something, you question it, period. If they tell you to go get something and are pushing super hard for it, you should question the hell out of it. They do not have
Absolutely.
your best interests at heart, man. And what does government do good? If we look back over like all the
Or
millennia
managing
since
money or anything else, or creating
it's
jobs or economy.
control, control. That's what
The
it
only thing they
does.
manage well is taxation
Yeah, yeah, which
and
they
giving you more
need
rules
to enslave you and to
and giving
control
you
you.
more rules to follow. Right.
Yeah, what they
I,
want to do is take money from these people and then give it to these other people, redistribution of wealth, right? It's all about
yeah.
control. Like these hardworking people, we're going to put our knee on their neck. And the people that don't want to do crap, we're going to give them money hand over fist so they worship us.
Yeah, like
Control.
giving all this free money to all these immigrants coming in our country. They're giving them phones, they're giving them cash, they're giving them housing, they're
Hmm.
giving them transportation. I mean,
Hmm.
and yet they're not giving that to our veterans that fought and served for our country. Where is that at? You know what I mean? Or
They're,
other
by the looks of it, they are giving illegals that have come over the border more money per month than Americans that spent 40 plus years working to get on Social Security.
exactly. Not only that
How
though,
disgusting.
there was a video I should have put on here. It was a woman on TikTok. It was a black woman who said that she slaved and slaved, working to start her own business and get ends meet and get by. And the government turned her down for getting loans for her business. Yet they're giving these free loans, same free loans to these immigrants for nothing. And she just
Hmm.
breaks down crying. Breaks down crying.
Yep.
How can our government treat these people this way when our own citizens they don't do it? You know what I mean? So
If you are an honest, hardworking citizen, your government hates you.
yep,
FYI,
right, right.
it hates you.
No, I
And
don't
it's
believe
and the thing is that I don't that's not like some belief I have, right? That's what I know. I mean, you can look at you know, actions speak louder than words. I always tell my kids this, actions speak louder than words. You really want to know who somebody is? Look at what they do.
case in
It's the
point.
same thing with government.
Look at Francis. Everything the man says and what he does is the complete opposite. Complete opposite all the time.
Francis?
Francis, the
Which
man who
Fran?
pretends to be the Pope of the Catholic Church, but I
Oh
claim
yeah. Oh yeah.
that guy, the guy's like, people are like, well, John, but he said this. And I'm like, who cares what he said? He did this, this, and this, which goes completely
Mhm.
against what he said. Actions speak
Yeah.
louder than words. You can't have it both ways. Pick one, you know?
People need to stop letting these figureheads blow smoke up their butts.
Right. I'll go
It's
ahead and
like
tell you.
the actions are what matter. That's like politicians, I would always go back and look at their voting records.
That's it. That's it. Look at the
Like
voting. If you want to know how they're going to vote in the future, look at their past performance voting record. That will tell you everything you need to know about that person.
right, because they're going to tell you whatever they think you want to hear,
Right. Oh,
before it
yeah.
comes time for you
Look
to
at
drop that
Kamala
ballot in
Harris.
the mail.
Kamala Harris now is taking a bunch of Trump's own initiatives away from him just to sound more conservative. The only times the leftists sound conservative are when they're lying before an election. Just like when she
Hmm.
said, "Oh no, I'm going to make it to where waitresses don't have to pay taxes and lower level services like that." You think she's going to really do that? Just like Biden said he was going to give back student loans. Did that happen? No.
Hmm.
It's a lie. It's a
Yeah.
lie. They're just telling you what you want to hear, you know?
Yep. Yep. And look at her actions.
And look at
Look at
that.
her actions. What has she done? Nothing. As
Nothing.
vice president. Nothing. She's
Nothing.
done nothing.
Right.
And what's scary is that I think that the people that have propped her up on the podium, we
Right.
Joe FJB, I always call him FJB, but he totally drops the ball in the debate. Who's surprised if you've been paying attention? So he's not capable of running for president anymore.
Right.
But he is right now. The guy's got the nuclear launch codes, and he's still the sitting president. No one thinks about that. No one brings up that issue. So let's put Kamala up there. No choice for Democratic voters. No primary. Like, it's
Didn't even win her
fixed.
own. Didn't even win votes from our own side. But yet
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
all of a sudden is going up there. But see, that brings up another point. Biden was never really the president or in charge of our country. It's just a continuation of Obama. I've shown videos
Yeah.
on here before where they had a meet and greet at the White House for for Biden. And every single person in the room ignores Biden, and they all go up to shake Barack Obama's hand. And then on top of that, I showed another video where Barack Obama flat out said, hey, if after getting out of office, if I could stay the president under the puppet of somebody else and still run the country, I would do that. I showed that video. And then I showed the video that not a single person in the room, even Biden, was going up and grabbing the arm of Obama, and he was ignoring him to everyone else coming up and shaking his hand. That shows you who's in power. That our country right now, those in power, they don't give a flying crap about law, the Constitution, or you. They don't.
Yeah.
And now that they have power, they're going to do anything and everything they can to try to steal the next election, because these communists that control power in our country don't want to give it up.
Now, yeah, this is not what I know, but this is what I feel and what I believe is going to happen, is that the powers that be right now that are running the show in Washington really played a heavy hand over the last few years, and I don't think they're going to want to let it go, like you said. I think they are going to do anything they have to do to keep things going in the direction that they're headed right now,
Including destroying our economy and bringing us into war.
I tell my people on my YouTube, because the channel's really, like, it's about prepping and survival, and everybody should be prepping right now. Everybody. It just makes good financial sense. Look at inflation over the last few years. Like, do you want to buy rice right now for 50 cents a pound? Or do you want to buy it in a year for $1 a pound or $1.50 a pound? Or
More
who
than that.
knows?
More than that,
Yeah,
yeah. Because
it's
it'll
like
be
you might as well buy it now.
Yeah, we're gonna hit famines for sure.
But I tell my people, Civil War, John. Like,
Yep.
this is, and despite the fact that I've been a survivalist for 40 years, I've never been the dude that's like, it's gonna go down. I've never been the dude that's like, it's gonna go down this year, man. No, right now, though, to me, the window is like, it's right there. Like, I really think that in my lifetime, this is the biggest, like, chance that it's going to happen. Seriously, because the people on the left, they don't want to give power up. I mean, Biden has said that he doesn't expect there to be a peaceful exchange in power no matter who wins. He's
He even
literally
said
said that.
he even said civil war. Literally.
Yeah, well, there's a sitting congressman, Jamie Raskin. Okay, he's a Democrat congressman that has come out and said on video that their plan, and the way he's talking about it, it leads you to believe that this is something they have discussed, and that their plan is basically to let Republicans vote for Trump, and come January 6th, vote to say that he's not eligible and disenfranchise everybody on the right, and prepare for civil war, and to put protection on all the people like him that are going to need it. Like, that is literally what this guy is saying.
I posted that on my last my channel last week. That story. That's what I was trying to pull up when you were talking. Is I was trying to find the article I had on that. But yeah, I posted that last week that he said that, and he's talking about civil war in our country, despite on if Trump wins or not. Someone said today that bookies like in Vegas and all, they're all saying from their numbers and statistics, and they're like 90% right all the time that Trump's going to win. So now they're saying, "Oh, we'll steal it and not accept Trump even if he does win," and they're straight out saying that and saying civil war. Oh, when you have things like I posted earlier above where you've got more and more agencies saying they're planning for civil war. And I
Yeah.
had a buddy on here a while ago that said that he was part of a crew in a company that's delivering 18-wheeler trucks of supplies to mountain bases for our government that takes 15 minutes to drive through the mountain before you get to the base.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Part of what scares me about like the next 6 months is that I not to toot my own horn, but I've been very accurate with my own forecasting over the last almost 2 decades now. And it's not because I'm smarter than everybody else. It's because I know who to listen to at this point in time. I've gotten old enough and wise enough to know what news sources are blowing smoke up my rear, which ones aren't, just by following them over the course of time. It's hard to be in that spot when you're a young man, but when you've gotten older, that's where you're at. Like I saw in 2007, I told my parents, get out of their mortgage, man. We're going to see a bubble pop, and they lost their house as a result of it. I saw the silver prices going up above 30 bucks an ounce at the time, and all this kinds of stuff over the course of time. And I'd say I'm like 95% probably, like I said, because I know who to listen to. And this right here, these next 6, 7 months, man, everybody needs to be getting ready, and you need to be in the right place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
At the right time. Last thing you want to do is get caught slipping and
right.
be living in the wrong place and
And
take the
see,
brunt
you,
of this whole
you
thing.
bring up a great point, and that is one of the key rules. I've been in the survival game for a long time myself. And one of the key rules of survivalism, you ask from any of the top experts, is you have to be prepared before shit hits the fan. You
Mm-hmm.
can't wait until it goes down to say, now I'm going to do something about it, because then it's too late. Then it's too
Yep.
late.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, it makes sense anyways. You like shooting? Buy ammo now while it's cheaper, man. Because if the last 4 years have told you, if the last 20 years have told you anything, it's that it's just going to be more expensive later.
I,
Like
I
buy it
tell
now.
people, I tell people, make fun with it for you and your family. Become hunters, become campers. That way you're already
Yes,
stocking up on the stuff you're going to need and the skills you're going to need anyway.
absolutely, absolutely.
Make it
Become a
fun.
trapper. Learn how to
I'm a camper.
snare. There's something big I could throw out there for people that are wanting to get ready out there, man. It's so overlooked because everyone thinks that they're going to be running around with a 22 long rifle and hunt rabbits all day long. It's like learn how to snare, man. It's a total game changer. And the people that think that small game is going to disappear in weeks in SHTF are smoking crack, and they've never raised rabbits because I have. I'll tell you what, they're never going away. So start brushing up on the skills too, man. Like
There's
if
a multiplier.
yeah, I was gonna say if you see something coming, let's say you're at work and you see that, and let's say you're like an IT manager or something, and there's some big new program that's coming out and they're offering training on it now, and you're gonna have to be proficient in it to get your job done. What are you gonna do? You're not gonna wait till you get slapped in the face by the boss because you didn't score your crap away. No, you're going to jump on the ball right now. You're going to go get that certification or whatever you need so you can be effective.
Right.
Right now, it looks like we are on track for Civil War big time. So now's the time to knock off your stuff and go
Yeah.
make sure you brush up on your skills, everything, get it squared
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. I'm going to be doing shows on. I've got another channel, Bushcraft channel. I'm going to be doing shows on different practical ways for gearing towards that, and little small ways of doing that. I just did one recently on a long term hygiene kit and how you can replace it in the field, kind of thing. You don't have to go back to the store to get more supplies, kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean that's brilliant stuff. Um, Circling back, I love all these topics, but I want to circle back to the Trump shooting again. Um,
Sure.
and cover some of it first before we delve too far into the side tangents, which are just as important, or the natural consequences of these things. But you were touching on this earlier, and I want to reiterate this point that I think you were starting to make is I want people to know we are so used to hearing about incompetence or mistakes in the media and in the news, but what people have to understand is a very key point here. If you look at all the things that broke down this day, it's not a coincidence and it's not an accident. In fact, I'll go as far as to say when you're dealing with executive protection at this level, there is no such thing as incompetence.
No,
There's no such thing as incompetence. You're
no.
talking about the highest level of security protection by supposedly the highest level of training and overlapping skills and training that we have available. There's no such thing as negligence or mistakes at that level. One mistake, okay, Murphy's Law. But to have this go wrong and this go wrong and this go wrong and this go wrong and this go wrong, no, that's not a coincidence. That's by design. That's my
There's a
design.
lot of there's a lot of jobs out there where you can make mistakes. And if we really look at the numbers, because I worked in like quality work back in the day, right? Like your average employee is going to screw up 3% of the time. 3%, man. You can expect that every 100 transactions, three of them are going to have errors. Your average awesome employee, someone you never want to let go of, is going to fail 1.5% of the time. But I will tell you, failure, screwing up and making mistakes when you are working protection is not allowed. It is not an option. You will find yourself working somewhere else very, very quickly. And when you have been fired from a job like that, you're not going to find a job working for another firm. It's
Nope.
not going to work that way. Like you're going to be working somewhere else in a
And
different career.
and that brings us to this. US Secret Service suspends agents in Trump shooting and probe. Oh wow, look at that. They actually took some action and suspended the agents. No, they all need to be fired. Fired.
Exactly.
And should be
Exactly.
criminally investigated.
Yeah. There was so much negligence.
Well,
Like you said, it's like, if one person screwed up, still, still, they should have been on the hot seat big time. One mistake from one agent. But this was so bad. I mean, even after the shooting occurred. So let me speak to this for a minute, right? The rounds start getting ripped off. You see Trump's immediate reaction. He's like, ducks. And the agents get up there and are covering him and they leave him on the stage. They leave him up there on the stage.
right.
No, no, this doesn't happen. In executive protection, you literally train to tuck your thumbs inside of a principal's waistband and to grab them by the belt. And you are going to pick that dude up and you're going to run his ass. Excuse me for using the A word. Is
No,
that
no,
okay?
no, that's all right.
You're
I'm
you're gonna run him to that armored vehicle and you're stuffing him in it, whether he wants to go or not.
right. Yeah,
You
and another
know?
thing along the lines with that is you also provide cover for your asset, correct?
Yes, you do. And you do
So-
not put people. So here's the thing about protective details. They're like I had worked with dudes that were small dudes, okay, and there was a reason they were working for the firm. They were very skilled, very knowledgeable, but you don't put them on body coverage. Okay? You have them moving people around, keeping their eyes on things, running parts of the details, usually where these were some of the ones that I knew were, involved in that kind of way.
right.
But what you do is you put big dudes on body coverage. You don't put well, I'm not going to say not to put a female agent on Trump's body coverage, but she needs to be a big gal. And most women just aren't
I
that
would
tall.
not big
How
enough.
how, how are you going to put you're going to put someone that's almost a foot shorter than the president on his body
Look,
coverage?
look at
How's she going
this.
to cover his face?
No,
You know?
here's a major problem and flaw right here. Look at this. This is after the shooting, but what do you have clear line of sight of right here?
Mhm.
All right. What do you have clear line of sight of? Here's after the shooting. What do you have clear line of sight of? After the shooting, what do you have clear line
Yep.
of sight of? You see what I'm saying? That
If
is
you could
not
take a
access.
picture of him,
And,
if you could
and
take a
look who's in
picture of
front of
him,
him.
you could shoot him.
That's the problem. And look
Yeah.
who's sitting in front of him right here. You see what I'm saying? That
Mm-hmm.
that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. Right here, too. Who's shorter than he is and covered in front of him?
Mm-hmm.
See, everything right here, you still have clean line of sight. They could, if you had another shooter or he took more shots, boom, he's still vulnerable and open. After that shot, that head should not be visible publicly at all.
Yep, exactly. Because if you could take a picture of it, you could shoot it. And I know everyone loves the whole thing where he was like, fight, 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 but he never should have had that opportunity to do that. Seriously.
If I was doing the security detail, first of all, that wouldn't have happened. Number two, the shots wouldn't have happened. Number one, promise you. My unborn daughter could have done a better job than the Secret Service did on that day. I promise you.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
that said, and that said, and then on top of that, yeah, you wouldn't have seen his face from that point on because there would have been body coverage and he would have been whisked away, regardless of what he wanted to do. Like you said, at that point, you become in charge and you take over the asset at that point. They
Yep.
did a
Yep.
horrific job. I mean,
And
horrendous job.
yeah, let's talk about the people on the ground that were calling out the
To the
shooter
police, to the
on the
police,
roof.
shooter, right? It, it's
People on the ground.
it's estimated that it was reported 27 to 30 minutes at least minimum. Some say 40 minutes prior that the shooter was there
Right.
before before it was even alerted, but prior to the shooting, and still everything was allowed to happen. Everything
Yeah.
was allowed to happen. And of course, we're
Yeah.
talking about in Butler, Pennsylvania, the shooting attempt of Donald J. Trump and by the alleged shooter, Mr. Crooks. All right. Which, by the way, I don't think in my entire life I've ever seen a better example of a cutout. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And what people
Yeah.
have to understand is there's a history of the FBI working with cutouts to be patsies. You remember the Boston bombing?
Mm-hmm.
When they were, remember, they were looking for the kid and his brother that were supposed to be involved in the Boston bombing. The kid and his parents were saying that he had been working with the FBI prior to that engagement, that he was working for them. Then, when the FBI finally found him, when they recovered him from the scene at gunpoint, guess what happened? They cut his throat so he could not speak. Now, I've been involved in many arrests. I've never been involved with one that you slit the person's throat as you're arresting them. Conveniently, so
Yeah.
he can't talk. The brother went on the run in Florida, right? He was
Mm-hmm.
telling his friends he was scared the FBI wanted to kill him. Well, guess what? The FBI found him, raided the house, and shot him and killed him. Can't talk.
Sounds fishy.
And the thing is, when you investigate these cases, you find that every time. In fact, there was even a story. I had a video for this, but it was removed. I had a story where they claimed that the parents were actually saying that their son was working for the FBI. That he was
Mm.
working for the FBI. Now, here's another thing about this kid. They know that he had 3 offshore accounts and large sums of money. The kid was a 20-year-old something kid working at a nursing home. He didn't have access to that kind of money. Where does that come
Right.
from?
And the other
Or to
thing,
know
like
an offshore. Go
the
ahead.
cell phones, the idea that the FBI got his cell phones and couldn't get into them. Are you kidding me?
He had
Come
multiple
on.
encrypted phones. One was a trigger device. And that's another thing. So they said he was found with bombs and a triggered phone, right? Well, here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. People that don't have professional training don't understand this. Bomb makers don't make themselves. They are government or professionally trained. That means if
Mm-hmm.
this kid had access to that weaponry, that level of skill, it was only through federal agents and professionals, not on his own. Not on his own. Okay. So, and then
Doesn't
they,
line up. It's just like, if you look at it, I mean, anybody with common sense could just anyone with common sense can add 1 plus 1. You know what
and
I'm saying? It just doesn't add
no
up.
one's been fired over this. I mean, how does that
No,
even make sense?
no.
Uh, okay,
Well,
explain
what was the name of the sniper at Ruby Ridge? Do you remember his name?
the Ruby Ridge. No, I know Ruby Ridge. I don't know the sniper's name.
I
You're
can't remember
talking
his
about
name.
the homeowner, the Green Beret.
He- No, the FBI sniper that
No,
shot his wife when she was
shot
holding
the
the
kid and the
baby.
wife. No,
Yeah, yeah. So that guy,
people might not know
you'd
that
have
story.
think there'd have been some kind of disciplinary action, but
No,
guess who? Guess who one of the
six,
snipers was at Waco?
yeah, right, right. No, they take
The
Ruby
same
Ridge.
guy.
They claim that Ruby Ridge was a success, not a disaster. And
Total
for the audience
disaster.
that may not be familiar with what he's referring to, there was a retired Green Beret from Vietnam. All right, and those guys are hardcore. I've served with a bunch of them in my unit. Um,
Hmm.
but this guy lived off grid in a remote area with his son and his wife, who just had a new child, a young child, and the son was outside walking on the property, and snipers, federal agents, shot this dog. And this kid didn't know what was going on. He sees that some strangers wearing ghillie suits just shot his dog on his own property. So the kid does what any normal person would do, sees this as a threat, returns fire, and then they shoot the son and kill him. Then when the father finds out what's going on, it creates a standoff situation in their home, and the snipers finally end up shooting his wife and their child that was standing in a doorway. And then they
Unarmed.
eventually was unarmed, and they killed her. It was straight up murder, right? Now, and here's
Hmm.
the thing, and you brought up, and it infuriates me that here you had a man who's a soldier, that's is a veteran that served his country, and this is how his government and his country treated him and his family, you know, and
And
they
one of
take
the
that as a success, as a win.
yeah, and one of the other really big details was that they tried to entrap him by getting him to produce sawed-off shotguns.
Right.
And they were trying to get this guy.
Yep.
It's not like somebody bought a sawed-off shotgun from him and they found out about it. No, they literally tried to entrap him. And something else that's going on these days is that your government does not give a crap about your rights. They
Nope.
don't. They
Or
will
law.
do anything they have to do to take
Right.
them away from you, and
Law
that
does
should
not
be a
apply.
huge alarm for everybody.
Laws do not apply to them, only to you. And when
Yeah.
laws are one-sided and enforced one-sided, like hate crimes, only forced one-sided, then we lose our justice system. You lose the rule of law, and it
We've just
becomes
reached a
law.
point though where like the Supreme Court will make a decision
Right,
and the administration's like, we're going to do it anyways because it's going to take them 18 months to bring it back to court. So we're just going to do it anyways. We don't care. We don't care what
like
they say.
the ATF. The Supreme Court rules against ATF. They say we're going to make up our own rules and laws anyway and ignore the Supreme Court.
Yep. Like,
Like, look,
sue us if you want us to fix it. You know, we don't care about your rights. We know that we can't, as the ATF, we know that we can't make laws restricting your use of anything. That's for
even though
Congress
we
to
do it
do.
all the
But
time
we're going
anyway.
to do it anyways.
We're
Yeah,
going to
we're
do
going to
it
do it
anyway.
anyways. And we're going to throw you in jail. If you don't have enough money to bring it all the way to the court, then too bad. Rot in jail.
Have you seen the video where the ATF knocks on the door of a SEAL Team 6 commander?
Maybe. Were they trying to get some like trigger that he had?
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah, and
Mhm.
he just shut him down. Like, I'm not giving you. I'm not responding to any of your stuff. You don't have jurisdiction, and you need to step off. And they kept,
Mhm.
and then they try to entrap you, but with leading questions, right, to
Yeah.
incriminate yourself, right? And they did it
Mhm.
over and over and over and over, and he just he just shut him down. You know what I would have done? I would have
Mhm.
said it one time, then I would have picked up my phone and I would have called the sheriff and said, "You need to get to my house right now because I got armed people on my property that I've repeatedly asked to leave. They're not leaving, and it's about to get shoot down. So you need to come here, and you need to come guns blazing. And by the way, it happened a few times, and some of the cops show up there and knock the shit out of those agents, as they should. And the sheriff says, get the F out, as they should.
Yeah.
Because they're actually there to serve the Constitution and protect citizens, which our government should be doing. Or they shouldn't be ruling over us.
Yep.
Shouldn't have the authority to push over us if they're not going to follow the law and the intention of the law. Look, the ATF just tried to entrap that guy for gun sales at the gun shows. Remember? And they stormed his house in the morning and shot him and killed him in the head.
Yeah.
And you brought up after Ruby Ridge, you brought up Texas, Waco, Texas. Dude, I could have solved that whole thing in Waco, Texas without anyone being shot, anyone being killed, anyone being murdered. All right? All you had to do is
most of us probably could. That's how poorly run these operations are. And that guy, that sniper, probably part of the reason. I mean, it makes me wonder, like, is that the reason these Secret Service agents have been, they haven't been fired? Because you're going to keep people around that you can use to achieve certain goals.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, so
one of the blaring elephants in the room I want to be sure to cover is, Secret Service agents can't get on a roof to cover a position that's, literally 100 yards away from them.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute.
How does that make sense? So as a security person, for executive protection detail, what are the first things that you're going to secure in that scene?
So for people that haven't been in the business, this is the way this kind of thing works. When Trump decided to speak at this particular rally, what you do is you send an advance team. And we're not talking the morning of. All right. For an event like that, it would have been probably 3 days in advance. And what this team does is they go out there to that location where the event's going to occur. They make sure that they drive everything all around there, multiple routes from where Trump's getting off the plane to where he's going to be at the rally to any kind of safe house in between, yada, yada, yada. They make sure they know where all emergency services are. Now, that's mostly going to be for private firms, but for Secret Service, obviously, you're going to have emergency services there. But they are going to get up on all the high places. They are going to talk to business owners. They're going to let them know that we need to have agents here. We need to have agents there, and cover all these kinds of spots exactly like the roof that Crooks was shooting from, so that this kind of thing does not happen. And the idea with the director of the Secret Service, I believe it was her that said that it was unsafe to put an agent on the roof because of the slant of it. Yeah. Can we go back to the picture of the roof?
Yeah. Look at that. That's him crawling on the roof. That's a slant of the roof. Yet on the other side, look at the slant there.
Oh yeah, they're on the roof just fine.
Yeah. Right?
It's so dangerous.
But it's so dangerous. As you said, the number one rule is controlling the high ground. Controlling the high ground is that's a military tactic. Always you're controlling the high ground first. That's your first level. Second, line of sight. Anything line of sight. And that goes for miles around there. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So to have the most blaring thing in front of you, and like there would actually be a ladder there in place that someone could use. Their job is to go make sure there's no such thing as that. And like you also said, they're going to coordinate like with the local police to make sure they're all on the same channel and they're all connected,
Oh yeah. You have to have comms with local law enforcement the whole time. And apparently they totally screwed that up as well.
Yep.
Also, the Secret Service did not show up to the law enforcement briefing that morning.
Well, they said that the Secret Service told the police to go away, and they were doing the job themselves, kind of thing. They weren't a part of it. Check this out.
Live breaking news. You're not going to see this anywhere else, especially on woke corporate media, fake news. There is brand new body cam footage that was just released from police officers on the site in Butler, Pennsylvania, where there was an assassination attempt on our president, President Donald Trump. And I had to cut out a lot of there was a lot of expletives and that I had to cut out. But you will hear the police officers saying, I told them they needed to cover the roof, etc., and a whole lot more. So watch this amazing raw footage from police body cam, and then we'll come back and talk about it. There are a couple of parts that the audio cuts out, but nothing to worry about. It comes right back in. So let's check this out, then make sure you come on back.
I need 5036, 5030, start towards the farm show.
I told them they need to post the guys over here. I told them that the Secret Service. I told them that Tuesday. I told them to post guys over here. I have no contact with the inside. What? I thought you guys were. No, we're inside.
Alpha 1, Bravo 1. Thank you.
I told them to post guys over here.
I wasn't even concerned about it because I thought someone was on the roof. No. I thought that's how how can you lose a guy walking back there?
They were on the roof. They were inside.
Why were we not in the building?
Because you need to go somewhere over in the left side.
Why weren't we?
Because I thought we were going to post guys over here. I talked to the Secret Service guys. They're like, yeah, no problem. We're going to post guys over here.
Watch the large window beside me.
I bet you climbed up here. I don't think so.
The trooper pulled in right there.
Oh.
I thought the trooper was yelling at him. He didn't see him because the bush was there. But
PD2 and officer, you're patched. You guys can talk freely. Available units for the west side of ATR if possible.
Who was over here? Do you know?
Who was where?
Was there?
I was against the fence right there.
Your fence right there.
And then Butler issue guy was right there.
Was there a guy over, was there one of your guys, or was there a Secret Service guy over here?
So I saw everyone start surrounding the building.
No, before at the start of this whole shit.
Yeah, they're both make it here and set up a perimeter, whatever they can do.
There's also another guy.
Bravo 1 is coming. And request North Hill search maximum. Bravo 1, do the best you can. Link up with state police when you get here. Set up the perimeter. Let me know you're taking place.
Is that where the dude is too?
Yeah, he's there too. So the ladders are en route. The operator suffered lacerations with hand, so like you might need minor stitching. Can't confirm life stats on the mail. Let's get it.
44.
So how?
Anyway, that's the meat of it. But yeah, they're all like, oh yeah, we got ladders en route. Well, how about the ladder the kid used to climb up the building? There should have never been a ladder there. There was actually a ladder placed there for the kid to climb up the building, you know? Mm-hmm. And you know why they released this body cam footage is because the Secret Service tried to blame the local police department for screwing the pooch on this deal. That typical leftist attitude. Oh, we're not going to accept responsibility. We're going to blame everybody else. Oh, and then you heard the female director at the time when she went before Congress, and she's like, oh, I accept all responsibility. I accept all responsibility. The buck stops with me, but I'm not taking any responsibility. Are you going to resign over this? No, absolutely not. I accept all responsibility, but I'm not resigning. I'm not doing anything. Absolute bullshit. And then she steps aside and they bring in this new guy who I think was the one that ran the whole operation to begin with. The thing is, all those agents should be fired, criminally suspected. And then on top of that, the whole top of the Secret Service chain needs to be fired and replaced immediately. And that also extends to the FBI, who was also proven to be there at that day. Mm-hmm. So they're involved. And that brings us to another thing. Who's doing the investigation of the Trump assassination? You can't trust the Secret Service. You can't trust the FBI. Just look at Mar-a-Lago. That explains it all, okay? Mm-hmm. Plus, I claim they were involved that day. And there's other agencies like DOD that were there as well, I guarantee you. So you cannot trust any of those agencies to investigate themselves and say, oh, we found that we were not guilty of a crime, when we're being politically used to target our opponents.
They're investigating themselves.
How many bank robbers say, Judge, it's okay, I'm going to investigate myself. Oh, by the way, I'm not guilty.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah,
Or
that works.
I am, but I refuse to go to prison. I'm not going to take any responsibility. You know what I'm saying? Like, the level of this is just, it's an insanity. And like I said, if you add all this stuff up, this is not complacency. This is not neglect. This is not failure of duty. This is a setup. This was an assassination. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, but this to me, 100% was an assassination attempt, and done by who? By those that are trying to kill him every day in the media, in the courtrooms, by the judges, by the FBI. It's obvious who it is. Those are the ones. Hey, Osama bin Laden hiding in a cave does not have the control of the head of the Secret Service or FBI. The left government does.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole thing, like, there's what I know, like I said, and what I know is that there were so many failures across the board in every way, many of which appear to be completely intentional. It's like, so what can I believe? Well, I can believe that they allowed this to occur at the bare minimum. Bare minimum, that they knew it. The kid's parents called the police 24 hours in advance and warned them that he was dangerous and that they were worried he might do something.
But if the kid had 3 offshore high-level money accounts, that's impossible for a 20-year-old kid working on a nursing salary, and his parents are poor too, so it didn't come from them. The kid's got 2 encrypted phones, all right? Some of them tracing back to the FBI, by the way. And then funny how they can't break the encryption, as they say, when they're the ones that probably gave them the phones to begin with. And then the kid's got explosive material with phone triggers. This is advanced level stuff. This is not stuff that a 20-year-old kid that can pull off on his own. None of that, even the ladder in place of the job, or ignoring his presence, which was ignored.
And they cremated him 10 days after they shot him.
Yeah. Now, see, that's okay. You want to know my personal theory on this whole thing? My personal theory is that kid never fired a shot. I don't believe he fired one round. I don't. I think he was just the patsy that they had to cut out patsy. I don't think he fired a single round. And as far as the kid being cremated, well, that's a funny way of, we could just get you off to another location somewhere to where you can be quiet and paid off. Now,
well, it's hard
they might have
inspect bullet wounds on a body that's cremated.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's hard. It's hard to.
And wait, how many press briefings have there been by the Secret Service on the autopsy or even other information that day? None. Zero. Silent. That alone is incriminating. It's not normal. Check this. Can't even get her weapon home.
Fist, but looks injured and is being taken out of this rally. Alexis, what can you tell us from there on site?
Well, Shannon, that was, I can't even explain how quickly that.
It was an all short female crew there. You know,
remember everyone, these are top level protective agents that have been assigned to protect one of the most hated people in the West. Okay? All over it, man.
It's disgusting.
Take a look at what happened.
exact
everyone
moment of the
has
shooting.
everyone has cameras these days.
Right.
That's the thing is like this kind of thing. You're getting to a point, and you're probably at a point right now where you might be successful in the moment, like you might whack whoever it is you're trying to whack, but the chances of the truth coming out are so huge.
Yeah.
The
It's not
globalists
like
ought to just put it to rest, man. Like, quit.
I think the globalists are so used to having so much control of the media and what you're allowed to hear and not allowed to hear that I think that they think they can get away with just anything now. But like you said, there's so many cameras. Obviously, at the moment of the shooting, there was someone moving on that water tower. That says everything you need to know. Here's another
Video
one.
was taken precisely when the shooting was happening. So here this goes.
Take a look at what happened.
So there was clearly a person there moving at the time the shots rang out.
I've seen that footage too about the water tower, and then I saw video of a woman who was telling people that there's a guy on top of the water tower, like before it happened. I want to say,
Okay.
yeah,
I didn't see that one.
A woman. I remember she had a red shirt on, and she's like, "There's a guy on top of the water tower,"
Right.
And I think she said that she saw him on the ladder on the water tower or something like that. Don't
Okay.
quote me on it because I think I saw it one time, and this is a while ago now, but I did see a woman talking about a guy being up on the water tower.
I saw something, but it wasn't real clear where they had officers that were on the roof after the shooting, and you could see in the background on the tower, someone was like climbing down the water tower or something. I mean, you could see this black thing moving in the back as they're sitting there talking on the roof.
Oversight
Check this
Project
out.
is a division of the Heritage Foundation, and they released what may or may not be a blockbuster today. And Steve Baker is here to break down all of the details for us.
So here is the gist of what Oversight has discovered through their own tracking, is they were able to ping and identify about 9 different phones at the home of the shooter. And so they were able to identify which of those phones were then going to his place of business where he works at the nursing home. So after they identify that and make sure that they've got the right ID there for that, now they can track it everywhere else it goes. Well, they followed it to the fairgrounds there, Butler County. What they discovered was that this kid was basically doing recon at that site on July 4th and July 8th. So they were able to track him. But they also learned, and this is very interesting, so this tells us either how smart this kid is or something else, is that he turned his phone off after the 12th. But it gets better than that.
Oh, keep going.
Well, it does, because in the process of looking at all of these phones that visited his home and visited the nursing home where he worked, they found a phone that actually pinged 7 or 8 times in D.C. at a building called a Gallery Place, which has a very large footprint of FBI offices and where source meetings and interviews regularly take place in the coffee shop of that particular building.
Okay, so right now we could just say it's circumstantial evidence, but if these are the phones that have been linked to Thomas Crooks and his family and everybody else in there, then this could potentially be something. But don't worry, you guys. The FBI is telling us that they are investigating the matter. We have nothing to fear, right, Steve?
Nothing at all. I mean, obviously there are many, many non-nefarious reasons why somebody would be at that building in D.C. But it's very curious, and it's something that we are going to look at. As a matter of fact, Oversight Project has blessed us and given us the data on this so that we can apply our own resources to this as well and assist them in tracking this down.
There's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that hit.
John, don't worry. The FBI is going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. I
Trust us.
I trust them. I just do not. Yeah.
Trust us,
I
man.
believe in conspiracy. I do not believe in the other C word, which is coincidence.
Yeah.
I do not
Not
believe
50 of them.
Even in Batman, when not Harvey Dent, when the commissioner made the police officer into a detective, he told him, look for patterns, and you're a detective now. You're no longer allowed to believe in coincidence. And that's true. They nailed it. You do investigations, you look for patterns, and you don't believe in coincidence. And then tie in motive. Who had the motive to stand from Trump assassination? Well, let's see. We tried to eliminate him in disinformation. That didn't work. We tried to eliminate him in court. That didn't work. We're trying to put him in prison. So far, that hasn't worked, just so we can shank him there and blame it on some crazy inmate. So now we're going to have to just try to outright assassinate him.
I'll tell you what, I told my wife probably like 8-9 months ago, because Trump was starting to say certain things. And I told her, I was like, if he keeps talking like this, they're going to try to kill him.
Right. That's right.
Yep.
And now that my concern is now that JF Kennedy Jr. has now given his support over to the Trump team, that has largely enlarged Trump's support, because a large portion of his followers now will be going that way, one way or another. So,
and look what the Democrats did to Bobby Kennedy.
Oh yeah,
Look what they did to him, man.
Horrific.
It's crazy. They like a guy that actually could get stuff done.
Yep.
As the president, a guy that actually cares about the right things.
Right.
But I really liked a lot of what that guy had to say, but it's like they shut him up, man. They stuffed him in a corner. They took him to court every single time he was going to get put on a ballot in a state. Like, these parties.
They knew he would not play ball. And because he's a real person, he's an independent person. I don't agree with everything he says, but he says some things that are brilliant and just the right thing to do. Like protecting children and like cleaning our food, especially for our kids, and getting rid of disease instead of just shoving medications down people's throats and actually getting people healthy and children. He says some brilliant things. If it's right, it's right.
God, he knows enough to know a lot of what's going on, like how the FDA is. It's run by people from big.
And he said that. Yeah, he said that. And on top of that, he also knows they killed his family. They straight out assassinated his family.
Yep.
So, and not only that, he came out in his speech basically saying what General Flynn was I was wanting to show, which is talking about how our country is being taken over by communism. Straight out. And that's the biggest problem we're facing right now. Is this election isn't just about normal politics or who's going to be president. This election is going to determine whether or not we have freedom in this country, or any bastion of freedom left in this country, or whether or not we're going to go into a complete communist takeover. That's what that's what we're facing.
Yes, and what are they going to do when they get there? Because communists always they're all running by the same playbook. And what they're going to do is they're going to start by getting rid of people they can't control. They're going to start there. So if you're somebody like John or me, you're going to be a target. The next thing they're going to do is they're going to target God. Anybody that believes in God, because they can't have any religion higher than them. Because if you serve a higher power, again, you're not going to do what you're told.
Right.
Beyond that, it starts to get crazy. It goes to a point where they are going to start to target highly educated people, artists, free thinkers, people that know too much. You got to go, man.
Right.
And the other scary thing, John, is that we are so reliant on the internet and cell towers when it comes to communication. I think that like a lot of people they say, oh, we'll never have a civil war here. Like everybody has too many guns. There's enough guns to literally put one in the hands of every single American. But no, we can have a civil war that kicks off somewhere, and all they have to do is shut down the means that we use to get our information, and nobody else will know.
That's it.
And
So
they
right now,
just basically divide us up into cells. Not that we're revolutionaries, but they could just
They control the whole mainstream media. They control most of the social media platforms. So it would be real easy. And they keep talking about this internet going down attack. So if they shut down the internet, that removes all our forms of independent news. Then the only news you hear is their controlled news. Right.
All they got to do is take down the power grid for a few weeks.
Power grid.
Oh, and do you want to see people on their knees? Shut down their power for 3 weeks, man, because it's not going to hurt me. I put myself in a situation where I can do everything I need to do in that that kind of scenario. But most people don't realize. I mean, how much food does most people have in their house? Do they have enough to even get through 3 weeks?
And
when
how
you
much is
realize
in the
you can't pump gas because the local gas station uses power to run the pumps, like you can't go anywhere. Most people don't realize that the water that's coming out of their faucet is pumped to them by city water, city water stations.
Electric
pumps. They're not diesel pumps.
Right.
Okay. They're not gas powered pumps. They're electric pumps, man. Like no water. I've literally heard people tell me that water comes from the faucet.
Right. What the Pentagon has said? The Pentagon and their own war games said that within 2 weeks without power, neighbors will be killing neighbors for food. And they said that's not like canned food. That's cannibalism.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I read a paper like a while ago, it was years ago, where they were talking about how the average millennial has less than 3 days of food in their apartment or their house.
Right.
That's
and then look how much is in a grocery store. I mean, it's only like 1-2 days worth of food. It's on a 24-hour real-time basis.
And how many people have actually been starved? Like I've been starved. I lost 35 pounds in Ranger School, and I went in lean and mean. I went in 7% body fat and lost 35 pounds. Yeah. Most people don't know what happens to people that are starving, like how it affects you, how it affects your mindset. And then outside of Ranger School, because the lifestyle I chose to live, having to provide, like as a real survivalist, it's like you got to put yourself in a situation where either you can get it done or you're dropping weight. And I have starved of my own volition effectively in addition to that. And I'm going to tell you, and this, John, but I'll tell people watching the podcast, when people start starving, it is going to get crazy. It is going to get crazy because most people don't have the discipline to be good people. Desperation makes people do desperate, crazy things.
Law enforcement will get overwhelmed and things will resort to basically gang warfare.
Law enforcement's going to go home. They're going to go home. They're going to be like, I got wife and kids at home and crazy crap's happening and I'm out. Peace.
Yep. That's why I tell people, get out of cities, get to rural areas. I'm going to try to play this General Flynn thing if I can. I got to do it on my phone because it wouldn't let me download it. So I'm going to see if I can't pull this off.
Communists that are in our government. We have communists in our government. They have been there for many, many decades. And now the Chinese, the Chinese have so infiltrated the institutions of power and the institutions of civility in our country. Education is one, as an example. The corporate world is another. Those are two outside of the government, as well as the government. And I'm very concerned about all of it. So there you have it, Clayton.
I mean, I'll get you out of here on this, General, which is President Biden just gave an interview where he said he didn't think that the election, the transfer of power He said Kamala Harris needs to win the presidency, otherwise there won't be a peaceful transfer of power. I'll get you out of here on that, General. Do you think that the United States is headed for sort of a rift, a major sort of civil war, in President Biden's own words, a non-peaceful transfer of power unless Kamala wins?
Yeah. You know, when I heard him say that, I was like, okay, because I analyze everything. I mean, that's just part of my brain. And I look at scenarios, you know, as an intelligence professional from the day I came into the Army, thinking about things. You look at things in terms of options and scenarios, and what might your enemy do, right? Worst case, best case, most likely case, kinds of things, situations. And when I heard him say that, I was like, these son of a are going to plan something. So it's not the conservative mega base Christian, you know, which is the largest segment of this country, that are going to do anything. If God help us, God willing, you know, Trump is able to win this election, if we have an election, then I believe that this progressive left, what he is projecting with that statement is that they will plan something that will not allow for a peaceful transition of power. Now, is that going to be done by the theft of the House of Representatives? Okay, so what people have to think about are the different, the different options that they have. They're in power right now. They're in charge. I mean, he's the president. Biden's the president. Why would he say that? Why would he set the conditions for anything but a peaceful transition of power? I mean, Barack Obama. There is a video of Barack Obama sitting with Donald Trump in the Oval Office, like 3 or 4 days after Trump won in 2016, where Barack Obama says, we're going to have a great transition. We're planning on turning over everything, you know, just blah, blah, blah. It's just going to be a wonderful, rosy transition to Donald Trump. You know, and those are my words, but those are essentially the theme of what Barack Obama said in November of 2016. Go find it, folks. And I'm going to tell you, it was anything but. It was like we were at war during the transition, and as we faced while Trump was in office, and this is what these people are projecting that they are planning on doing. So I want us to have a fair election. I want it to be done properly. I want it to be done normally. And once it's done, you know, may the best, you know, in this case, you know, man and woman, whoever, win. I mean, I want Donald Trump to win because I fear that we will become a communist country. I really believe that, and it'll happen very quickly, and we will never return. We will never return to being a constitutional republic. That's the weight that I feel is on my shoulders, and that is the weight on the shoulders of every freedom-loving American on the planet here, and certainly in the United States of America, and that's what I believe. So I just, you know, I want people to understand that we're not in a politics as usual like some of these rhinos believe. You know, our policies are better. They want big government, they want little government, they want less taxes, more taxes. We're past that. This is about two competing ideologies right now. Americanism and being a constitutional republic, or being a progressive socialist system of government and really falling under the reins of communism. That's what we're looking at. And I can't say it any more clearly. Rid of a lot of these communists that are in our government. We have
So I just wanted to play General Flynn talking about it. I highly respect him. He served in the Trump administration. He knows more about what's going on than anyone else. He's also suffered at the hands of these communists. They took him out. They put him in prison on a procedural error, which is a bunch of bullshit. Just like they put Anthony Bannon in prison right now, currently, also on a procedural error. And the thing is, I had to catch myself there. Thing is, You know, these leftists in Congress lie to us, lie before Congress all the time, just like Mark Zuckerberg admitted to in the beginning of this episode. Yet nothing happens to them. But on procedural errors, they take good people like Anthony Bannon, like General Flynn, and throw them in prison just because they're the opposition.
Yeah, well, we have the justice system it's very, what's the right word for it? It's very discriminatory based on your views and stuff like that.
One-sided.
Yeah, it's if you're on one side, it's going to treat you harshly. If you're on the other side, it's going to let you out. And like even all the riots that were occurring, around the George Floyd thing. It's like, you had Soros bailing out a lot of these people that were burning buildings to the ground and doing all those kinds of stuff. But to address some more of the stuff that that General Flynn talked about, because I think we should hit up some of the things that he's saying here. Personally, I feel like even if Trump gets in, I don't know that it's going to turn the tide when it comes to civil war. Like it might do it for the next 4 years, but eventually we're going to end up with another progressive leftist in power. This is how it happens. Like if you look at the way these elections go, even whether or not they were like fair elections or they weren't, what we end up with Democrats that usually do 2 terms, and then we end up with Republicans that usually do 2 terms. And we've been going to the same place no matter what. So I feel like Trump might kind of put the brakes on it, even if he gets there, gets in there and cleans out the swamp and does all that kind of crap. But the next time we get some progressive leftists in office, what's he going to do? He's going to do the same thing they always do. He's going to fire everybody from the previous administration, appoint all these, dirty people that are going to do whatever he wants them to do. Not to say that the Republicans are totally clean. Like, I'm not going to say that they're totally clean. And then when it comes to China, I had so my brother works in rapid prototyping. He owns a business where he gets basically CAD drawings of parts and stuff like that, and develops a rapid prototype for this company so they can look at the product and be like, okay, yeah, let's do a batch. Let's do like a production run. And he sends a ton of business to China. He works with China all the time. He's going over there all the time. He's got friends over there. And they have a 200-year economic plan.
Yep.
We can barely get a budget passed. We are spending so much money we don't have that even our kids and our grandkids are still going to be paying for. And China's got a 200-year-long economic plan. And COVID really kind of shed light on just how bad our situation is. Let me give you an example. So I pulled a motor out of my F-250 recently, and I'm getting it rebuilt, getting a new cam, putting it and board over and all this kinds of stuff. When I was doing research for the cam, I was getting on these forums, and during COVID, the companies that produce these cams could not source any steel.
Right.
None. It all comes from China. America is in a situation where we have sent so much of our manufacturing, practically all, over to China and Mexico, but especially China. We can't even get a bar of steel and mill it into a cam. We are in really, really bad shape, because if you look at what China's doing, you look at what Iran's doing, and you look at what Russia's doing, like Putin has allowed this Kursk invasion to happen. The guy's got tactical nukes that are ready to fire right on the border. And boy, he has a lot of patience, because he is still holding back on it. But China is ready to make moves on Taiwan. Iran's ready to make moves on Israel. And I get the feeling, now this is not what I know, it's what I think, but I get the feeling they're all waiting for something to happen.
Yep.
And I think that what they're waiting for might be a civil war or the serious civil unrest that's going to kick off in the U.S. around this next election. And then that's when they're going to make their move. So if you think things have been rough for the last 3 years, boy, you really got something else coming, man, because if we get into war with China, they will be ceasing their exportation of goods to this country.
Yep.
I mean, we'll be
Well,
brought to our knees, man, in like no time.
oh yeah, one of the reasons I do this show is because when I was a younger man, God showed me visions that all this was coming, and this was you know, 30 plus years ago. It was in 1996, 97. I went into church to pray one day, and God just hit me over the bat where like you just snapped your fingers. It's like the entire Encyclopedia Britannica just popped in my head at once. And it was all visions and prophecies about the future. And it was all about the stuff that's going down right now, right now. And I've been telling friends and family for over 30 years, all this was coming. And, you know, you got to understand, you can see the stuff coming today. But 20 years ago, if you tried to say any of this was coming and America would be on its knees as it is now, or the depraved state it's in now, people were like, "Oh, you're crazy. You're insane. That'll never happen in America." Yet here we are, fast forward, and we're at that moment now. And God said all this was coming. He also told me that the U.S. was going to fall in a single day. And he says, and when it falls, it will never recover. It will never rebuild. There will be survivors, but they will never rebuild. It'll never be the United States ever again. And God told me, for all you little snowflake Christians out there who are like, God would never allow evil to happen to us. I can't stand those people. Have you ever read the Bible? Go back and reread it. All right. God said it's his will that the U.S. is destroyed for one reason and one major reason only. I'm sure there's several others, but he said one major reason. He said that was because of abortion alone. He said it's sealed America's fate.
I've met plenty of Christians that know what's going down and they see these hard times coming. And they've told me, we're going to heaven, so we don't care. Like, we're not going to do anything. He'll either save us or we're going to die and go to heaven.
God helps.
And, you know, God isn't going to just swoop in like Superman and save you when you've been sitting on your hands for years. You know, you need to be productive. You need to be getting stuff done.
Yep. God helps those who help themselves.
Exactly.
He doesn't, and also, you know, a lot of my Protestant brothers and sisters, you know, they cry about the rapture. The rapture is going to save them. The rapture is going to save them. I disagree with the rapture, and many Protestants disagree with the rapture as well. But I disagree with the rapture on a couple of reasons. One, it was never a teaching in the church for 1,400 years. All right, for 1,400 years from the time of Christ, it was never a teaching in the church. It's taken out of context, I would argue. Number two, Christianity is not about escaping your cross. Christianity, Jesus says, if you want to be like me, if you want to be in heaven, pick up your cross and follow me. Following him is always following him to his passion on his cross. So Christianity isn't about escaping the cross. It's about learning to carry your cross and place it next to Christ. That's what Christianity is about. But to embrace it not with fear, worry, and anxiety, but to learn to embrace it with faith, with hope, and with trust in God, no matter what happens. And ultimately, as Romans 8 says in the Bible, don't be concerned of what happens to your flesh, because this life passes in a single moment. It's short, but eternity lasts forever. So every decision you make here determines where you're going to spend eternity. And that's what our focus needs to be as Christians, that and trying to help other souls come to know, love, and serve Jesus Christ. And that is the test of being human.
Yeah, my understanding of the rapture, and for those of you that are watching that believe that it's going to bail you out, if you go back and just read the Bible, it's pretty clear that tribulation happens before anybody is going to be teleported out of here. I mean, like tribulation, what does that mean to you? Well,
ready to go down.
And it's like 7 years. I want to say, John, you know better than me.
The Bible says that a time is coming when in that tribulation, which I argue is starting now officially, that will be the worst evil that this world has ever seen since its beginning until now. It's worse. And that means Christian persecution like the world has never seen on earth. And what did we say would happen if these communists win in all these different countries and create their one world government, these globalists that create their one world government? They always kill Christians once they take power. So when they create their one world government, they're going to outlaw Christianity.
China's still doing it today. They're still doing it, man. And if you guys like, the thing is Mao was pretty bad. John, let me ask you this. Do you know what the democide numbers were last century?
It was for Mao Zedong, it was 1 billion people. A hair under, but I always round up. It was 1 billion people that he killed of his own people.
Well, there's a University of Hawaii has an ongoing study where they look up like democide numbers. Like they literally do the research to be able to give hard numbers regarding democide. And their estimate is 262 million last century. That's a lot of people murdered by their own governments. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of people. Even though it's a lot less than your 1 billion number. They're saying Mao, I think it was 100 million or 110 million is what they're saying. But still, it's a ridiculous number of people. I mean, government is the most dangerous thing out there.
Our own forefathers said that the most dangerous thing on earth is government, and that it's by force. I could put up more quotes like I used earlier from our founding fathers that talk about the most dangerous thing. Look right here. No free man shall ever be deprived the use of arms. The strongest reason for people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is as a last resort to protect themselves from the tyranny in its own government, because that's what they were facing. And the repercussion of that is this: remind the world what happens when only the government has guns. And by the way, someone made up a good point lately. They said no one's anti-gun. The thing is, if you claim you're anti-gun, you're not anti-gun. You're only saying guns should be in the hands of the government. Well, if guns, because they're never giving up guns.
Yeah, you're saying that guns should be in the hands of the one entity that's murdered more people than anything else.
That's it. That's it. That's it. In fact, check this out. Look at this. To conquer a nation, first disarm its citizens. Imagine that. Imagine that. From the man himself. But you brought up Mao Zedong. Here's something I talk about on some of my other shows. People don't make this connection, okay? So Mao Zedong, when he murdered almost 1 billion of his own people, it was in a thing he called the Great Plan, all right? The Great Plan. Now, first of all, people have to understand it was the Rothschilds that not only created modern Israel amongst the Palestinians, and created that state in the situation we're facing now. But on top of that, it was the Rockefellers, the first lieutenants of the Rothschilds, that put Mao Zedong into power and created modern China. They created modern China. And why? Because it's the beta test for the globalist one world government they want to create. That's why you have the head of Canada saying, "Oh, I support the communist government over any other form of government," essentially saying he's going to be a communist in the country. And it was because Mao Zedong was doing the Great Plan. All of that is a part of this, the Great Reset.
I have that book.
Great Reset. The beta test for the Great Reset was Mao Zedong's Great Plan. And what did he do then? He killed almost 1 billion of his own people, forcing everyone out of rural farms into the 15-minute cities. That's what they did. Now, does that sound familiar at all?
You will eat the bugs, and you will like it.
That's right.
And own nothing.
And you will take the mark of the beast. The Bible says, "Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you take part in her suffering." I claim that is talking about the receiving of the mark of the beast. God says, come out of the cities. The Bible also says, when you see these times, Daniel, when you see these times come, flee to the mountains. Flee to the mountains. Don't make haste. Don't look back. Get out of the cities. Flee to the mountains, where God's people have always gone for protection in such times.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. Let's talk about fleeing to the mountains real quick, because the way things are going, it's like a lot of people out there, they've got their bug out plan and they think that they're ready. And they think that they can make it happen. But I want to encourage everybody, you need to knock the dust off your crap, and you need to go spend some real time doing it the hard way, because the way you think it's going to go when you run to the mountains versus the way it's going to be are two completely different things. So right now is the time to learn everything you can about that eventuality, if that's your plan.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Oh, that brings up a point you said before when we talked. And that was, people think you serve in special forces units and everything, that you learn all these super high speed survival skills. And it's not really true. It's
yeah. So
it's not
yeah,
like
that's
movies, Now,
no.
you learn a lot of cool stuff, but everything is mission specific. And so when it comes to performing those missions, you're gonna learn everything you need to know. But that is not, unless you go to SEER school, it's not about learning escape and evasion. And even if you go to SEER school, you do about that much escape and evasion. You do this much time getting your butt tracked and tortured. All right. So it's not even really about escape and evasion. So
No,
that's
it's
not something. Survival skills aren't really something they teach. Now, there's handbooks on it. The SAS handbook is considered one of the best. And they've got really neat skills in there. But yeah, it took me going and studying and learning and doing courses to learn survival skills that you never learn in the military, especially like the concept in Europe. I went and took classes on bushcraft skills or blacksmithing. I went to Sweden and took blacksmithing courses so I could learn how to make knives and axes by hand. And
That's cool.
And I went to England and South Sussex to study bushcrafting skills and how to make bow drills, and the concept of bushcraft. Excuse me, it's getting over a cold. Right now in the U.S., everyone's heard of the term bushcraft now, but when I came back from England, no one had heard of bushcraft here. It was all survivalism and stuff. And
it was called playing in the woods back then.
Right. Bushcraft's a little different. Survivalism is kind of like, how do you get out of an emergency? Whereas bushcraft is, how do you live in nature more connected in a symbiotic relationship where you're comfortable living in nature and off nature. And part of that is having respect for nature, where you take care of nature or don't use too many resources and clean up after yourself and things like that, So, so I love studying bushcraft skills, and yeah, so I've got a channel dedicated to doing that. I haven't been using it or pumping it out much, but I intend to start pumping it out more to try to get some of these concepts out into the mind of people. But you bring up a hugely important point. Even aside from classes and all, and some of the camping I have done, most of mine, in the military, you learn about technical and tactical knowledge, right? Most of mine is technical versus tactical, whereas your knowledge is tactical because you've been living it. You've been living the homestead life. I've been studying homesteading for years. I've watched every episode of the Rainies. You familiar with the Rainies?
No.
Oh man,
I'm kind of unplugged, man. We just started watching Hulu.
Yeah,
like a month ago, and these commercials come up, and I'm like, dude, I am so out of touch with a lot.
There's
of
this
stuff.
one series, all right, and it came out of there was I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head, but there was a survival show like on Discovery or National Geographic years ago that was about the survival thing in Alaska. And what happened is they took local Iditarod champions. You know what I mean by Iditarod? The dog sled races in Alaska. It's like their version of the Olympics. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like the big thing in Alaska every year. Well, they took like the champion of the dog sledding. They took some hardcore Alaskans, and they took U.S. Special Forces, and they stuck them in different groups together. And then they had to compete crossing Alaska to do different team events. All right. Just like you would in SFAS, right? You're timed to get you and the equipment on your back, which is just a backpack. And you have to get from point A to point B through mountains, snow, and mud, I mean, just everything, and see who wins by like basically capturing the flag first, right? And they did like 3 seasons of this show, and I ate it up, man. And one thing that was funny, I gotta admit, the special forces guys that basically they had Marty Rainey, not Marty Rainey, they had one Marine recon scout sniper kind of guy. I'm forgetting his name all of a sudden. Rudy Ruiz. All right, he's out. He's known in the community. But then the rest of them though were former Green Berets and Navy SEALs. And those guys, I gotta admit, they got their asses handed to them every time, just about by the locals. The locals beat their asses on the team events over and over again. And these are some of the toughest, baddest dudes, you know what I mean? But part of it, this is a key part. Part of their mentality is we're hardcore and we're going to rough it and we're just going to go straight through the environment. And whereas the locals are like, hey, we know it's bad here, so we're going to take extra time and go around. They just being smarter. The hardcore guys got themselves in trouble because they were trying to prove they were hardcore and they lost.
Well, yeah, special forces mindset, right? You know this, and I know this, is the fastest, most direct route to whatever it is you're trying to whack.
Right.
And there's definitely a place for that.
Yeah.
In special forces, but local knowledge is big, man.
Yeah. And common sense.
Like you got to get out. You got to know the area you're going to be working in. It's something I talk about on my channel. Like, where's your bug out spot?
Right.
Have you scouted the hell out of it? Have you been out there? You got to get out there and know everything that's around it.
Right.
Like, location for SHTF, and you need to know the location.
Yeah, absolutely. So it impressed me. But there was one guy on there. And this dude, man, this guy was like in his, I want to say like mid 50s. And he was putting these Green Berets to shame. Like, not taking anything away from the SF guys. They were all awesome and hard charging. I love those guys, right? But this guy's in his mid 50s and he's keeping right up with these guys and beating them in team events. And this guy's name was Marty Rainey. And he's famous in Alaska as just being this like hardcore, old, and he's a homesteader in Alaska. Well, he did a spin-off TV series, I believe called The Rainies, or I know it's called Homestead Rescue. And what he does is he comes down to the lower 48 and they go to different states where people are trying to do homesteading, but they don't know what they're doing and their homestead falls apart or collapses. So Marty Rainey comes in with his daughter and his son and that have grown up with him, and they're all like expert homesteaders. And so they come in, they assess the situation, and in a week's time, they come up with a plan to redo everything, whether it's knocking your house down or rebuilding a new one. And he always brings in excavators. That's his favorite tool is a chainsaw and an excavator. But the things this guy does in a week, and this is one of these guys that's just like, hey, I don't know if it's humanly possible, but I'm going to make it happen regardless. And he gets it done. You know what I mean? Just like, damn. And he takes these homesteads and just completely turns them upside down and makes them functional. He's like, for homesteading, you need this, you need this, you need this, you need this, and you need this. Get those instead of the idea, the fantasies in your head of what homesteading would be like. You know what I mean? He says, work these necessary skills and then you will be successful. One of them is how to hunt. One of them is how to grow your animals, right? And another one is how do you get rid of predators? How do you keep predators at bay? Because some people are like,
they're a big problem.
Some people are like, well, I don't want to use a gun. Well, then you're in the wrong business. Go back to the city. You got to learn if you're on the homestead, you need weapons. You've got to.
If you're going to not shoot, you need to be with people that are going to shoot.
That's it.
Yeah, so one of the things I like to talk about on my channel, and I think this is super big, and I didn't come up with this, but I learned it from Tim Ferriss, years ago reading his book is The 4-Hour Work Week.
Okay.
And he talks about the 80-20 rule. And I read this when I think it came out when I was in my early 20s. My stepfather bought it for me, who was an amazing guy. But I took the 80-20 rule and I looked at it and I was like, I've been doing this my whole life as a kid already. And I just, just kept using it. But what it is it's that in anything we're going to do, anything we want to accomplish, 20% of what we do produces 80% of the results. And so I think that like anybody should apply this, like everybody should apply this to their life in any ways that they can. But especially when it comes to becoming proficient at something really, really fast that you haven't done before, like homesteading. What you have to do is you have to find out what the 20% is that's going to produce the 80% of results for you. And then you focus on it. You make sure that you know how to do that 20% backwards, blindfolded, sleepwalking, whatever it's going to be. And it's all.
Oh, you cut out. You cut out there just a second. He'll be back in a second when it clears up. But yeah, he's right about the 80-20 rule. I heard about that. I was trained on that in the military and was trained on that again in law enforcement. We always train for the 80-20 rule. And that means you cover 80% of the time that you need to be prepared for. You'd cut out. I was just continuing what you were saying.
Yeah, I cut out again. But yeah, basically, focus on the 20% that produces the results for you. And you can apply this to anything. I've got livestock. I got all kinds of livestock, and I didn't do a garden this year. We got an orchard here, but I'm gonna be kicking off some serious gardens next year. I've got a greenhouse that's in the works, and I definitely have stuff I need to be working on myself. But anything new, I tackle. Always find out what the 20%
in the military.
is.
They taught us the 80-20 rule in the military, and it carried over to law enforcement. Same thing. We always train for the 80-20 rule. So, like in law enforcement, 80% of shootings took place at night, and were 4 rounds per person, 2 to 4 rounds per person. 80% of shootings. So. But then the final 20% that jumped to 40 rounds because you're taking cover at that point, right? So we were required to train for that 20%. So we always had to carry 40 rounds on us to cover that 20%. So that way, if we covered the 20%, we were covered for the 80%. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So everything we did was to train for that 20%. So and then you're just covered. One thing I wanted to suggest, a new thing I've been reading about and studying a lot lately is all these chemtrails and stuff they're dumping in the sky. And you brought up earlier about eats the bugs, right? A lot of farmers are saying this year their crops aren't growing or only growing a third of what they normally grow, and it's because of all the crap in the air, and it's oversaturating the crops. Okay, with like barium, salts, and aluminum and things like that. So one suggestion is, as much as you mentioned orchard, but as much as you can, work on that greenhouse project. They say the greenhouses are successful because they have protection from the sky and you can control what you're putting in them.
So the whole chemtrail thing, I know a lot of people out there are like, nah, it's not happening and all that, but you can look up the equipment that they're using to cloud seed with planes and all this kinds of stuff. And I think I might have just lost you now. So I'll keep talking because you're gone. I just kept talking because you disappeared for a second. But
your connection, it was fine on my end. Although I did want to remind you, you talked about time. How are you in time?
You know what? I got it postponed a bit. So I got a little bit extra time. Yeah. Right. So but yeah, I looked at a study. This wasn't all that long ago, probably about a year ago, where they were measuring the like aluminum levels, arsenic levels, that kind of stuff in farmland. And they had been doing this over the course of time, right? So like every year they measure these levels. Well, the levels were very slowly increasing up until like 2017-ish. and then they just started blowing up, and they're blowing up even more like every year.
I've seen them in every
So
country. I've seen them in every country.
yeah, so I mean, for people out there that want to be like, oh, they're not spraying this stuff on purpose. I mean, if you just think about the whole, you know, climate argument that the left in particular uses, like, why would they not be trying to spray to cool the planet off? Like, why would they not be trying to reflect the sun's heat if their whole
Right.
position is that global warming is going to wipe us out? You know,
Right.
remember, John, the sea level has raised 40 feet in the last 2 years.
Oh no, according to Al Gore,
We're all going to die.
we're all dead already. Yeah.
Oh, my
Yeah.
mom's husband. I'll just say I can't stand the dude, but he just moved them to Mexico, and this guy for the last like 10 years has been saying that the sea level is rising so fast, like we can't live where we're living anymore. And what do you got now, dude? What do you
Right.
got? You know?
Yeah. That was Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth, which turned out to be a bunch of horse pucky.
Yeah, yeah. It's called, you know, it is climate change, but it's based on the sun's activity. Like you can look at this, man. There used to be a ton of vineyards in the north of England.
Yeah.
Tons of vineyards in the north of England back in the Renaissance era because the
Right.
sun was warmer. There was more activity.
Oh,
And you can see this in the soil. Like you can measure the radiation of the soil and see it, but they just no, they want to carbon tax the crap out of you and
mhm,
control you, and they want you eating freaking bugs,
mhm.
you know, because cow farts are going to ruin the planet. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And because protein makes us strong, so they don't want you to have it.
Exactly. Look at how much soy they're pumping into all the food in the stores, man.
Oh yeah.
Look at men's sperm counts today. If you look at men today and how many of them are sterile, do
Mhm.
you know how many men were
Or
like,
or
I've
not
read a
not not
study
just that, but
recently?
also effeminate.
Oh yeah. Oh
Look,
yeah. It's no
the
wonder a
military,
lot of them these days think that they should
look,
be women.
the military is saying today that they can't find enough soldiers to join. There's not enough people to join the military to replace the military because they can't
Be a
find men.
man, eat beef
Yeah, that's it.
every day.
That's
Eat
it.
meat. Kill something and eat it, man.
And look, to what I said earlier, look at this. Tech giant CEO tells Davos meeting cell phones will be built directly into our bodies. Remember when I was talking about Bill Gates saying the AI is going to speak directly to your mind with the mark of the beast? That's what he's
Yeah.
talking about. Cell phones will be in your brain. They're rewiring our brains for this. All right. Another thing
Yeah.
is
Oh,
this.
good.
Terminator becomes a reality. Former Google head announces plan for killer robot takeover of the world. All these robots and drones, that's a whole nother show right there, that they're using in the Ukraine and stuff, they're going to be using that stuff on us. I can tell
I
you.
know it.
In the
I know
future,
it.
the most important piece of gear is not is the most important piece of gear in the future is going to be something that covers you from infrared and thermal signature. Promise you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know what? It is hard to hide from that crap,
It's
man.
a new level of warfare. I'm going to be
Yeah.
doing shows on that in the future. It's a new level of warfare. But and I've talked to some of the engineers that have designed some of that stuff, and man, it is scary, scary stuff. You know,
It is. And I've watched a lot of videos on like how to hide your thermal signature. And there's just really not a
it's
lot of great ways that aren't primitive out there. I mean,
it's
the best
hard.
way is to just be obscured, you know. They've got some clothing that will kind of help. But and the thing is that the technology when it comes to the optics is advancing more rapidly than the somewhat primitive technology to avoid being seen.
Right,
It's not good, man.
right,
It's not
right.
good because it's gotten to a point where it's like, you know, you could get out in the boonies. I got this one fly that's just bugging the hell out of me right now, but you can get out in the boonies and live in some earth lodge, but they're going to see the heat from that little tiny fire that you use to keep yourself warm through that
Yep.
winter. You
That
know, it's going to
artificial
be
sun.
like it's going to like a beacon in the
Right,
middle of nowhere.
right.
And satellite technology, like they can see this stuff with satellites if they know where they want to be looking.
Right.
Man.
Yeah, it's very difficult. One of the viewers said, that trying to support a family when you don't have a big income, and yet trying to eat meat when meat prices are going through the roof right now. One thing I recommended to him was grow rabbits. Rabbits, unlike chickens, are the easiest and fastest thing to grow. The meat is almost just as much as chickens, all right? And it's super cheap. They're very easy to grow. If you listen to anyone who grows rabbits, they'll tell you meat rabbits are the way to go. Also, you can grow potatoes even in a little greenhouse, even inside of your home. You can look up videos on 5-gallon buckets for growing potatoes. You can even have big barrels that grow. You can grow 500 potatoes in a large barrel.
Yeah.
There's ways to
So
do it even inside.
I grow rabbits for meat. I have rabbits. And they are Rex rabbit and New Zealand and New Zealand crosses now. We got rid of the actual New Zealands, but we grow rabbits for meat. As a matter of fact, my wife butchered 8 of them yesterday while I was like cleaning up a whole bunch of our knives on some stones.
Okay.
And they will get, if you butcher them when they're younger, like 3 months, you get a pound and a half of meat off of a 3-month-old bunny.
Right.
If you let them get full grown, I mean, we're talking a 10, 11 pound rabbit, like, live weight. And I haven't measured exactly how much I'm getting because I usually keep them on the carcass, the big ones, but they grow really, really fast.
How long for full grown?
6 months. Well, at 6 months, they're considered like to be adults. They could start breeding,
Right.
but you really have to give them like an extra 3-4 months if you want them max size. I'd say that you're best off butchering them at either 3 months or 6 months, which is fryers and boilers.
Okay.
Yeah, just because the cost to feed them beyond 6 months, you're not seeing as much growth anymore.
Yeah, if you found there's this great guy on TikTok. I'll try and look him up if I can. I haven't seen him in a while and send it to you. But this guy, he raises rabbits and encourages meat rabbits. He actually did a course. I bought his course. I haven't watched it yet. It was like $35 to buy his course. I bought it. But he was talking about how what that was. First of all, he grows the food for the rabbits himself as well instead of buying feed. So that's interesting.
Yeah, that saves a lot of money.
Yeah, he was saying it was real cheap. The way he's the way he's done it is real cheap. He said to do it, but he grows his own food for him. And then on top of that, he was explaining how a lot of people that maybe haven't done homesteading, they're always like, "Oh, I'll just go buy and raise chickens," which is great. But he was explaining that the way that they've bred these chickens now, it's like the GMO seeds. They can't really self-replicate unless you're dependent on buying them from the system. He's like, so you can't reproduce them the way you can the rabbits.
You got to be careful. So I have chickens too.
Okay.
I've got, oh man, I probably need to count them again. I just gave 7 to a family member, but I've got about 30 chickens ish.
Okay.
And the thing is you really have to be careful about where you're going to get your chicks from, because a lot of the newer breeds and even these supposedly like heritage breeds, if you're buying them at some big, country store, they're not truly what they used to be anymore. Like they'll go broody, for example. They'll sit on eggs for only 18 days and then they'll quit. So you end up with chicks,
right?
That kind of thing. I've got good hens and a good rooster. I think I've got 2 new young roosters right now. It's a little too early to tell, but they're doing their whole posturing thing with each other.
Yeah. They can be notoriously difficult to deal with, right? I used to feed my horses, and the neighbor's rooster would jump the fence and come attack me.
We named ours Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
He's this big gray rooster, and he will come after me, man. He got me. He caught me and spurred me last summer while I was in shorts, like looking at my cell phone. Came up behind me and whack.
My neighbor would call me up angry because I'm whacking their chicken, but I'm like, well, tell your damn chicken to stay off my property and not attack me. I'm like,
put him on a leash.
I said, you're lucky I didn't shoot the damn thing and eat it. But because I have a rule,
Yeah.
if something attacks me, I attack it back. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. And if it's
that's
on your property,
yeah.
you know,
You're not going to come
I got
attack
a,
me on my property. You know, if a
I got a
dog
little,
comes to attack my property, I'm putting it down. Sorry, neighbor.
I got a little story when I was first out homesteading out in that remote spot. There were a couple of dudes out in the area, and they had a whole ton of feral cats out there that were just going crazy. And so we bought this amazing piece of property. We get out there, and one of the things that made us buy it was when we were checking it out. We were walking up the hill, and there was this huge buck, like think Bambi's dad,
Right,
just
right,
like
right.
giant rack, and he's like got his
He's like the
chest out
freak.
just like Bambi's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he looks at us like, what,
What
and
do you do on my land?
yeah, and we were there with like a couple of puppies, and he didn't care. He just kind of like walked off, and I was like, oh
Right.
damn, it's a sign, like we're
He, wa-
buying it.
he wasn't even threatened. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good sign.
No,
There
but
was a
we get
property.
out there.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we get out there, and there's nothing but like biting flies and wasps.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
like, what the hell, man? There's no birds, there's no rabbits, like there's
Right.
nothing.
Right.
And it was these feral cats were
Mm,
all up through that whole valley, like super bad. So
mm.
this guy, I was like, I'm gonna let a couple of my dogs off, my two dogs that loved hunting.
Yeah.
Every night, man, I'd let them go, get them off the chain. And every morning I'd wake up with dead cats, dead kittens out chilling outside. And these guys got a little upset with me. So they called animal control. And
Right.
I get home from town one day, and there's this business card from animal control on my fence. And I call this guy up, and he's like, I heard you've been like not controlling your dogs, and your dogs are getting off your property and they're killing all these cats. And I was like, yep. And he's like, well, you can't do that. Like, it's a state law. You got to control your cats. And I mean, your dogs. And I told him, I was like, well, I'll tell you what, here's the problem. These guys and their feral cats and that yada, yada. And so I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll chain up my dogs as soon as they chain up all their cats.
There you go.
And he just didn't really know what to say to me. So conversation was over, and I kept doing what I was doing. And guess what? Next spring, I came back after taking the winter to go travel. And there were all these little birds and rabbits and squirrels and gray squirrels, and
Yeah.
the balance was upset.
Well, that's the
So I
thing.
returned the balance.
One thing you learn about nature is there has to be a proper balance. Just like people say hunting is evil. No, it's not. You're keeping a proper balance. Otherwise, these herds would be unhealthy,
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have a proper balance. And cats are great in a proper balance, but they can get out of balance really fast because they
Yeah,
raise litters very quickly.
we have one cat. She's
Yep.
fixed, and that's all we need.
Yeah, because she'll keep rats and mice away,
Mm-hmm.
So if she's a hunter cat, not all cats are these days, but on a farm, having a hunter cat is very helpful, and it serves its
Yeah.
role on the farm.
Yep. She's a
So
hunter. My dogs are hunters. They're out there
yep.
killing ground squirrels and pack rats, which do just a ton of damage.
Oh yeah.
It's insane how much damage pack rats will do to your stuff.
Boy, isn't that
I mean,
something? Yeah.
they'll get under the hoods of your vehicles and chew up your wiring and
Oh yeah, I had to replace. It cost me over $100 to replace the what do you call it? The reservoir that holds water for my windshield washer fluid in my F-250 truck because rats went in there and ate it. Ate a
Mhm.
hole in the water.
Oh yeah.
Cost $100 to replace a little bitty water container, plastic
Yeah.
water bottle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they'll hose you. And some of these wiring harnesses on these expensive trucks, man, like the Dodges with the Cummins motors in them. I mean, you're looking at like $1,500, $2,000.
a lot of times the rat traps you see, they'll put one underneath the engine of the vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just
I
for
just
that.
keep I keep traps just set up around here and just go check them every day and try and keep the numbers down. But like we were saying, there's a natural flow to things in nature, and it's natural. right? Like
Right.
it doesn't have to be. I mean, men can definitely affect these flows. But for example, this year, grasshoppers got so bad, John, so
Yeah.
bad. They came through and were just like eating all the leaves off all the trees in the orchard. And it went from like not not any worse than normal to all of a sudden totally out of control in like a few days. And it's all the result of having two winners in a row that just weren't bad enough to kill off enough eggs.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
just
Yep.
kind of is what it is. And so I'll see this
And
being
that's
someone that's like out away from the asphalt and the concrete
and
and
they'll
living out
destroy a
every
garden.
day.
They'll destroy a garden
Oh,
in time.
oh yeah. Oh, like in no time. But being out and living this way, man, it's something I keep my eye on. You know, I'm the dude that's like, what phase of the moon are we in? Like, you know, oh, I can smell the rain on the wind and all that kind of business. But you see it, and so you'll have these years, and I'm getting to the point where I'm like, okay, well, I know that because the grasshoppers were so bad, I'm gonna have more of a pack rat issue,
Yep.
and the squirrels because they're eating these things and they're just growing. And then that can translate into more coyotes that we got to deal with a year down
Right.
the road because coyotes are eating them and the young are surviving and stuff like, and they're breeding more because of the food. And you know
Right.
what I mean?
Yep. 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 Yeah, I was thinking of getting a silencer for a subsonic rifle just for dealing with coyotes because people don't understand they can be such a predation of a farm. And when you shoot coyotes, you want to be able to shoot them quietly so that the others aren't aware and you can take out most of the pack at once or at least good numbers. Otherwise, you just
Mhm.
get one, scare them off, and then you never get ahead of it. Says
Yeah.
not only that, there was one, was it Tim Wells? Dude's a badass when it comes to like the dude with a blowgun.
Mm.
He killed a deer, a full size deer, and a black bear with a blowgun. Okay, this
Yeah.
dude's wicked. But there's one episode he has I love. He has an air rifle, like a 30 caliber air rifle,
Mhm.
and has a night optic on it, and he's killing at like it was, I want to say almost, I don't know what the exact, it was almost 100 yards. I don't know if it quite is that accurate at that distance, but he was killing off these coyotes with an air rifle. I mean, it was impressive. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
like, that's cool because that didn't cost a lot in ammo either. You know, so
Yeah. Yeah.
um, on your one thing I wanted to tell you, have you heard of Mike Adams?
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
Mike
The
Adams, yeah,
natural
yeah,
news guy.
that guy. I love that guy. He was, his nickname was the Health Ranger, and
Yeah. The Health Ranger. Mike Adams, the Health
I've
Ranger.
been following him since 2005. Okay, but he's a great guy. The guy's a billionaire, and he has his own drug labs, and he will test, like if you claim you've got some new product, he'll test it to make sure it verifies to the claims. You know, and he does that kind of stuff. But he
Mhm.
also hires tier one guys to contractors to come train him on his property, on his farm.
Oh.
Yeah. So he does. Look, this guy, his skill level is as proficient as a contractor, as a typical contractor, because he trains with the top guys, and he runs the drills. You know, he runs all the drills, the CQB, the range, everything, the three gunner. I mean, he rocks it. He rocks it all, and he does a lot of survival preparation and self sufficiency. And he's got farms, huge farms, and he does all the stuff on his farms. But one thing he said, I thought this was kind of brilliant, a game changer. You've heard of colloidal silver, right?
Yes.
I highly recommend to people to get colloidal silver because colloidal silver is a natural form of antibiotics. And if we ever come to a time where you can't get to a store or a doctor to get a prescription for antibiotics, humans die very quickly without antibiotics. All right.
Mhm.
With colloidal silver, you can actually get a colloidal silver generator and you can produce your own. By the way, China reported in the news that when they had their COVID pandemic in their hospitals, they were using steamed colloidal silver to purify the rooms from the patients. So if they had a sick patient come in, the way they would sterilize the room for the next patient was they would bring a steamer in that was steam colloidal silver. So that's how much they thought it was effective. All right. But
I'll have to
anyway,
look into it.
yeah. So I'm not a medical doctor, not making claims. I'm just saying that was a report that they reported on. You can look that up. But there are many out there who claim this stuff's amazing, but it works as a form of natural biotic. And it's one that we can create with a generator if you do it correctly. It's very simple and it's very safe. But that you can do it, and you have a form of something if you can't get to a doctor, you can't get to a hospital in an emergency. So that's huge, but you have to use 0.9999 pure silver, so it's non-toxic, okay, in order to make the solution. However, Mike Adams came up with a brilliant idea. You could take a normal silver coin or just normal silver that's not pure, and you can make colloidal silver with it in large batches, like gallon jugs, and you cannot consume that because it's toxic. But he says it makes a fantastic bleach alternative, and he says he uses that to clean out his chicken coops as opposed to bleach, which is toxic. So that's where it's a game changer. Not only with pure silver can you create a natural antibiotic, not only that, you can use it topically. Look, I had a cold, and you know how my throat felt like I had strep throat. It was so raw. I take colloidal silver in an oil diffuser. You know, the natural oil diffusers that you just do for scent and aroma. Instead of oil, I put in some colloidal silver, and it steams it up, and I breathe it into my lungs and into my chest. I've done it for years. And within 1 day, it makes all the soreness from my nose and throat go away. If you had strep throat in 1 day, that soreness would be gone from that colloidal silver. I breathe it in, and then from your lungs, it spreads from your capillaries in your lungs to the rest of your entire bloodstream to treat your whole body. So, but it targets the lungs. If you have an infection, a chest congestion, and your lungs are having issues from being sick, it can directly treat that area of the body, which is amazing. And then not only that, with making the toxic version of just regular silver coins or something for the disinfectant for surfaces, that's amazing, But also, I've had eye infections where I just put some colloidal silver that's pure, non-toxic, and cleans up the eye infection. Wounds, you can put it on wounds. In fact, hospitals make a product right now that's a colloidal silver gel. It's impregnated with colloidal silver, and for their third-degree burn victims, they use this gel to put over there to keep it from getting infected, the wounds from getting infected.
Huh. Yeah, I'll definitely have to look into it some more. I know I read a little bit about it back in the day, and there were like some people, I guess, that were way overdoing it, and their skin was turning blue and crap like that. So
the media always does that to try to scare people. Look, they want you going to big pharma for everything. All right.
Yeah.
That is a true case. That was a true story. But this was a person that was drinking like copious amounts. And still, it didn't affect the health, other than it did turn his skin like blue. He looked like a Smurf. But and it can that can happen. But I've listened to medical doctors for years that said they said they recommended it to me as long as it wasn't in these ridiculous levels. I mean, this guy was drinking. Look, if I get sick, I take a little bit. And it does the job. This guy was drinking like huge glasses a day for years. I mean, it was ridiculous. I wouldn't suggest that to anybody. And certainly, again, I'm not a medical professional. See your doctor and stuff like that. But and you want to research anything that you do. But there were a lot of naysayers, and they do try to scare you from using stuff like that. They're also claiming that ivermectin was bad, but now doctors are saying that it's great. There's lots of reports on that in the media news now, where they completely flipped. They said it was bad. Now they say it's good in the news and media. So,
yeah, that they wanted, the guy that invented that, came up with ivermectin, got a
Nobel Prize.
Award? A Nobel Prize for that. Yeah.
He won a
They say it's
Nobel.
like a miracle.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And here's a kicker to that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
people, the news media, when they were saying it was bad, they were saying, "Oh, this is a horse medicine. This is an animal dewormer." But it was the man who invented it for human consumption, not animal consumption. It was invented for humans. It's so much so that I believe it was in 2015 he won a Nobel Prize for his invention for human use. That's what the doctor said. But it was so effective and so cheap that they started to use it on animals later, and people just didn't know any better. I raised horses for 30 years, so we gave them ivermectin as a dewormer. And by the way, having chickens and stuff like that, you can give them ivermectin. But another great thing is the diatomaceous earth.
I actually don't treat any of my livestock for worms.
Yeah,
I don't. But there's a lot of there's lifespan of parasites.
Yeah,
and where you start running to the issues with parasites is when your animals are confined to certain areas for such a period of time. But if they're not, it's not an issue. I haven't had a single issue with it at all. Been doing it for years now, and there's a lot of pasture that my goats and sheep have access to, and so I'm not worried about it.
A lot of doctors are saying today humans are full of parasites that we're not used to knowing about or treating.
I just started kind of finding out about that recently, actually.
I will say this. I started taking the ivermectin, and you know what happened? My arthritis went away. Now, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not claiming medical cures. I'm just saying what happened to me personally. And a lot of health issues I had went away as a result of that. And I think there could be a connection there.
Yeah. I was listening to some podcast or something like that, and some medical doctor was talking about how humans are infected with parasites. Like, if your dog's going to get parasites throughout the course of its life, and it's only going to live to be 10 to 14 or whatever, like, why would you think that humans wouldn't get parasites?
Right.
And I've actually done, not to get into the details because it's kind of hardcore, but I've done a couple of like cleanse kind of deals.
Oh yeah, cleansing's always
and
a good.
I had some parasites, man. Let me just say it like that.
Cleansing, I recommend everybody do different types of cleansing, including liver cleanses. Think of it this way: we change out filters and everything we have. Your liver is the filter of your body, okay, and you want it to last. And if you clean that filter, your body's going to perform better. Plain and simple. It's just like what happens to your car or house if you don't clean the filter? It's eventually going to clog up and not function any further. So we want to make sure we're cleaning our bodies and our filters. And today, just like I was talking with those chemtrails and stuff they're putting in the foods, we need to do detoxing from heavy metals. It's a whole nother thing.
Have you looked into the microplastic thing?
Oh yeah. It's scary. It's scary. Well, I try to avoid drinking from any plastics anymore or using plastic containers. But they're finding it in all kinds of. Not only that, I almost put up some stuff tonight, but I ran out of room. There's a show on TikTok where this guy is taking store-bought products, opening the bag, and then putting samples of them under a microscope and showing all these bugs in them. Like Cheetos, bags of Cheetos, opens it up, puts it under a microscope, pops open a can of your favorite soda, puts it under the microscope, and you see all these bugs moving around in it.
Oh boy. I saw one with hot dogs recently.
Oh man.
I was like, I'm never eating one of those damn things ever.
I have not eaten a hot dog in over 10 years, and I will not eat a hot dog. When you find out what those things are made of, which they're not meat at all, it's just leftover trash body parts, including lips, and even has a degree of how much. Yep, and has a degree of how much roaches can be in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So
processed foods are not a good thing.
Processed food. In fact, you know what I tell my friends? if you want to be healthy, one of the number one rules for being healthy, all right? This isn't a catch-all for everything, but it's one great rule to live by and for you and your family that will help you get way ahead. And that's this one thing. Always buy one ingredient foods. Processed foods are killing us and making us sick faster than anything. They're unhealthy. They're not natural. One ingredient foods, rice is rice, chicken is chicken, fish is fish, potato is potato. You can mix those foods any way you want at home, but buy one ingredient foods. If it has a list that long of ingredients, don't buy it. With that rare exception.
I completely agree, man. Like, as a matter of fact, I was joking with some lady in the at the checkout line the other day about something else, but it's when I go shopping, 95% of what is on that little conveyor belt is produce, meat, and it might be some grains, it might be milk, it might be a thing of sour cream, whatever it's going to be, and so that's definitely how we are. My wife's an amazing cook. She likes to cook everything from scratch, and so there's no need to purchase a whole bunch of processed stuff.
One thing that'd be great too is if you can find local farmers and get unpasteurized milk. Because the milk
I've read about that.
Milk or any juice you buy in a store or from concentrate has been pasteurized, which means they heat it. That destroys any health benefits or vitamins at all, and they artificially add everything back: taste, color, and smell, and texture. So it's all artificial. It's all sugar water. They've even got bills in Congress where they can tell you that no sugar is added when they added a ton of sugar to it, because they say, well, this orange has so much sugar to begin with. So by the time we destroy it and add that sugar back, and of course we're going to lie and cheat, right? Now it's got 3 times that amount of sugar, and we're legally allowed to say we added no sugar. No sugar added. But it's a lie. All these, unless you're fresh squeezing it yourself, it is fake, not real, and not good for you. And one real key to health that people don't understand today is probiotics and a gut biome and how important that is. And that's where unpasteurized milk, which has pretty much been made satanic by our government. And why? How many people has it killed? None. But
I looked it up actually, and it's like one person in the last 3 years or something.
I heard like 10 years.
Yeah, it might be longer, but it's, there's a lot of things killing us at a much faster rate that they allow.
Why would you? I always say this.
They let us buy.
I would say this: if they're demonizing it so bad, there must be something really good about it that they don't want you to have.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I usually look at what the government tells me, and they're like, you need to be over here. And I'm like, that actually means I need to be over here.
Right.
So I tend to do the opposite of what they tell me to do.
Yeah, well, I don't trust them. So when they tell me one thing, it makes me think that there's a reason for the other.
Right. Like milk has killed one person in the last so many years. How many people has high fructose corn syrup killed?
Oh, yeah. Well, we can't go into that too deep without getting the people from cutting the show. But you're right. I mean,
gotcha.
There are chemicals that are very unhealthy for people and are highly addictive that they're putting. I'll tell you what, what most people don't pick up on this, but check this out. One of the greatest most successful marketing campaigns in U.S. history, you know what it was?
What?
Do you remember the debacle of New Coke? Back in the day. New Coke. They came out with New Coke.
I was probably a kid.
Right. Yeah. So what happened is you had Coca-Cola, okay?
It was
you had a bottle
cane
of
sugar.
Yeah.
Right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. That's you're jumping ahead. Yeah.
Whoops.
You just told the end of my story. You gave the punchline. But yeah.
Sorry about that.
So this is what happened back in the day, and most people don't remember this because, I was a little kid when it happened, but I remember because I had a Coca-Cola addiction. But anyway, you know what they call Coca-Cola addiction today? Diabetes. Anyway, so you had Coca-Cola, And this, what happened is the Coca-Cola company announced, we're changing the flavor of our Coke. Now we're going to call it, we changed the formula, and now we're going to call it New Coke. And people were like, ugh, this tastes like crap. And then people were like, bring back the old Coke. We don't like this trash. And they didn't even give you an option. The only option was the new crap. And everybody was like, this sucks. No one liked the new Coke. And then finally, after like almost a year of this, Coca-Cola announced, hey, we've listened to our fans, our customers. We're going to bring back the original Coke. And they called it, it's not Coca-Cola now. Now it's Classic Coke. All right. They slightly changed the name, Classic Coke. And they had to do that because they switched it back to the old formula with one ingredient change that everyone was so happy to have their Classic Coke back that they didn't know or they weren't wise to the one ingredient change. Instead of natural cane sugar, they put in high fructose corn syrup. And that was the most successful marketing campaign in the United States history. Coke sales went like 100 times through the roof of what they were. They made their money back way and then some, and people weren't any wiser to what just happened in reality. And then in time, all the other soda companies switched over because it was a whole lot cheaper for them to produce the cane syrup than it was to buy, the corn syrup than it was to buy the cane sugar. All right. Number one. Number two, it was a lot more addictive to the body than cane sugar was. And you started seeing health problems that also started to rise through the roof as well. And
the whole reason I know about that is because I stay away from the corn syrup.
Yeah.
I stay away from it. And so I literally, whenever I see, like, I like to have a Coke every once in a while.
Yeah.
It's not very often. It's like maybe once every 3 months. And yes, I probably going to pour whiskey or bourbon in it. But when I see those little Coke bottles in the glass bottles,
yeah,
I always go check. I'm like, is it got the cane sugar? Boom, I'll buy them.
Well, see, but there's the key you just said. If you look at, there is a brand, and they're usually in the glass bottles, but there is a brand of Coca-Cola that's still manufactured in Mexico, in Mexican factories. And the difference is the Mexican factories, you can read this on the label, still use cane sugar. So that would be much healthier for you and your body than the newer stuff with the corn syrup, which is terribly unhealthy to the body. So
Engines don't like it either. Corn, the ethanol, the whole ethanol bit.
Right. Yeah. So we have to here's one thing people don't understand is we have this thing called normalcy bias. And the problem is, in our world today, we're so used to health being unhealthy, but it wasn't always like this. I mean, in our grandparents' day, you didn't have sickness and disease. You didn't have cancer and diabetes and all these other. In fact, I listened to somebody that was talking this week, a medical doctor, who said, in your entire medical career, you might come across one diagnosis of diabetes in your entire career. Now, it's like several times a week,
Yeah.
And that's not healthy or normal. And look, what's the variable that's changed? The variable that's changed is the quality of our food and what's being put in it. And a large part of that is over-processed foods. In fact, a lot of countries have outlawed GMO and outlaw over-processing, and their countries are much healthier. In fact, I lived in Italy for a year. And while I was living in Italy, they said, John, if you get sick, man, go back home to the American hospitals and get treated. And I'm like, okay, thanks. Man, I heard this everywhere I went. And I heard this like 12 different times. And finally, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, why do the hospitals here, why are they so bad? I said, do you not have Do you not have, like, training for your doctors and your hospitals? What's the problem? And they said, John, here in Italy, we don't get sick. And I was like, whoa, a light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, wow, we're being trained to be sick for
Mhm.
for profit. You see what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
America has focused on treatment
Yeah.
as opposed to prevention for a
Yep.
really, really, really long time. And then the other thing is, let's just keep it real. Like, the majority of Americans don't read what's on a box. Like, they don't care. They're
Right.
so busy
Yeah.
living their lives and working their full-time jobs and trying to make ends meet and stuff like that, that they're just not going to spend the time. And a lot of Americans too, they don't think it's possible that the government would allow food companies to make foods for us that aren't healthy.
Right. Our people, I don't understand where in America it got to the point where people don't understand that you cannot trust government anymore. And they trust government implicitly for everything. And I don't understand that. Where
Well,
did
it's
that come
over 80% of the kids. So we used to homeschool all of our kids.
from? Okay.
As a matter of fact, we homeschooled all of them for 8 years.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was like, we're a blended family. So we started
Right.
with my wife's kids when they were really little, and then my kids ended up coming out to live with us, and they had been going to public school. So
Right.
we started them off on homeschooling. They were all anywhere from 3 to 4 years behind when we placement tested them.
Right.
But looking at the numbers and all the the research I've done and stuff like that, like over 80% of the kids in the country are being educated by the government.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of where it's turned that way, is when you see the government that's educating you as a child more than you see your own parents every single day, because
Right.
they're off working. And like, I went to private schools a little bit,
Yep.
homeschool a little bit, and then mostly public schools. But I'd get home from my public school, and my mom wasn't going to get home till like 5, 6 o'clock.
Right.
And then we'd like have dinner and hang out for a little bit. Maybe if I wasn't going to play with friends, it's like the government raised me more than my mom did. You
Absolutely.
know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Yeah.
And
That's how it's
so, yeah, we fall into this thing where we're like, we trust it. It's our parent,
right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you, you bring up a good point. That's where I think a lot of that is probably instilled from very young ages, that we think that everything we're told is for our benefit or health, and that we're being looked after, and we're not.
hmm hmm
You know.
And I like, as a parent that has homeschooled for so long, but just put my kids back in public school. The reason I felt it was okay to do that now is because they're beyond the point of indoctrination.
Right.
They've been raised by us and spent day in and day out with us for so many years at this point in time. Not to mention, we got them either back up to speed or even ahead of where they were supposed to be, kind of depending on the child.
Yeah.
Some kids want to focus more on their studies, and others want to make it as hard as possible.
Right.
But I would definitely encourage people that have children, like, you need to spend some time homeschooling your kids.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that, like, that you don't need to do it the entire time,
Right.
but there's definitely a benefit there for your children.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, I mean, the thing is, the more we get along with this, the more you realize we need a return back to nature. Whether it's in our food, whether it's with our family, whether it's the way we live, how we live, where we live. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and you talked about too, living that homesteading lifestyle. When you're out remote, you have that whole sense of slow down, where it's unlike living in the city, where it's constant movement and constant noise and everything's a rush all the time. Out in the
hmm
country, you have this slow down. But not only that, when you're in that slow down and you're in nature, I find it's healing to the soul, first of all. But second of all, it brings you much, much closer, you and your family, to a connection with God.
Yes. Yes. So that's one of the things I've really experienced over like the last 12 years living the way I have. Because I used to be living up in big cities and rat racing it, and had my bug out bag and my my kit, and I was ready to do my thing. And like many veterans, because we talked about this earlier, I kind of had my head in the clouds about my chances of surviving if I had to run to the mountains, like realistically speaking. But getting out here and seeing God every day,
Right.
instead of being surrounded by a man-made world,
Yeah.
it's totally different, man.
I call it the concrete
Totally different.
jungle. Call it the
Yeah,
concrete
yeah.
jungle. I say we weren't meant to live in the concrete jungle. We were meant to live in nature. And
It's
when the thing
no
is, when you
wonder
live
that
in nature, you
that
feel it.
people are moving away from God. It's no
Yeah.
wonder,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Like when all you see every single day, pretty much, except for the sky above you, was created by man. It's
Yep.
easy to forget, you know?
Everything's artificial in the concrete jungle, Even relationships, like my neighbors, you could throw a stick and hit their house, but they don't want nothing to do with you. You're too close, so you push each other away,
Mhm.
Whereas in nature, your nearest neighbor could be like a mile away, but you tend to be closer to them than you are in the city, which is
Yep.
crazy.
Yep.
So,
If my nearest neighbor is 3 miles,
okay,
but
see,
if
that's awesome.
they came knocking,
Right,
I'd be right there to help them
right,
out, and I can say that they would do the same thing.
right.
And on the flip side, like you were saying, one of the things I experienced getting out of big cities, which like I grew up in the Bay Area,
Mhm.
you know, so I have done it. I have really done it. Like I spent a lot of time in San Francisco as well and stuff like that. And what happens is people just can be real a-holes and there's no consequences. Like they don't have to worry about it because they're never going to see that dude that they were
Yeah,
rude to in line at
right,
Starbucks ever again.
right,
You know
right.
what I'm saying? They can treat each other like trash. Whereas you get out to the country and these small communities,
Yeah,
you cannot do that.
no,
You cannot treat people like that.
right.
And there's places like where my property is, man, it is, which is it's about an hour from here. And
Mhm.
it's a little different out here. It's a little more civilized, but there are places where it's true mountain justice, man.
Oh yeah.
Like you mess with the wrong person, you say the wrong thing to the wrong person, they'll put you in a hole.
Oh yeah. Look, a lot of places in the country, they have what's called the 3 shovel rule, which is shoot, shovel, and shut up. And look, like here's an example of that. Say you live out in the country and you catch like poachers on your land, whether they're stealing trees or whatever, right? You
Mhm.
can't tolerate that. But let me tell you, these guys are doing criminal activities. They know they're doing criminal activities. They know what happens to them if they get caught. So if you show up to try to tell them to stop, they might just assume shoot you. You know.
You better
So
be ready to deal with it.
one
And I'll tell you
thing,
what, I'm a good guy.
yeah,
Like I'm one of the good guys. You know that.
yeah.
Um, but I got holes dug. I don't intend to use them, but you
Well, that's the
know,
thing. You have to. It's a little bit like the Wild West. You can't always just call a cop and expect him to be able to show up like in the city. It's not like that
oh yeah.
sometimes. Wow.
Yeah,
And
if I had to call a cop to try and get them here, they're not going to show up for 45 minutes. And what they're going
right,
to do is they're going to take pictures of my body if
yeah.
I'm not willing to handle my own crap.
Hey,
You know?
there's a rule that one gun in the hand is worth an entire police force on the phone.
Oh yeah. Oh, easily.
You know. So yeah, and
Easily.
you don't know, criminals also might be out there. So you got to be able to handle business a little bit. When you're in the wild, it's a little bit like the Wild West. You are on the food chain with the animals and people. So
Yeah.
be careful. You have
Yeah,
to be careful.
it's luckily people out here the people that live out here, they know how it is. Like
Right,
I was on the phone with the with one of the guys that works at the school, the superintendent, because
right,
I was like, this bus stop is too damn far from my house, like you guys need to do something to fix it. And so he sent the bus lady up here in one of the school trucks, and she saw the ranch and
mhm,
turned around like an eighth of a mile before she got to the gate because she
huh,
told him, you know how those country folks are, man, like I could get shot if I get up there
right,
super close. So
yep,
him and I were kind of joking about it. People
right,
know, like I'm, if I leave the house on the ranch here, most of the time I got a gun.
right. Oh yeah.
It just is what it is. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
it could be coyotes, it could
And
be.
you got to be careful about just approaching someone's house too, because you could
Mhm.
get shot. Yeah. Yeah, and in
Yeah.
the city, I carry a 9, which I hate, but that's what I carry. It's most practical. But when I go out in the rural or country, I carry a 1911. And I carry a rifle as well. So, and usually a shotgun. So, yeah. Well, we're coming up on 3 hours now, so that's that's uh that's the limit for my thing.
Cool.
But look, if there's any last minute thing you wanted to say, to tell people about your channel or how to find you or reach you or whatever, promote your.
Yeah. So as I've already pointed out in the podcast here that everybody should be getting ready. And you don't have to believe something's going to happen, man. The bottom line is that you're just going to save money, getting yourself prepped right now. Stuff you're going to buy down the road anyways. You might as well do it. My channel's about that. It's also about survival. But I don't really need to plug my channel. I just want everybody to know that hard times are coming. You need to take a look at your situation. You need to be in the right location and you need to have the right plan. And you really need to start knocking the dust off the skills you think you're going to have to use. And I really would just impress upon everybody that if we get knocked back into the dark ages, which could happen in a very short window, you want to be able to lean back on some of those old skills. Look at how the natives survived in your area. Look at how the fur trappers and these kinds of people survived in your area. Spend some time learning those skills, be proficient, focus on the 80/20. That's it.
And look at something along those lines are try to tell people think about hand tools versus power tools.
Yes. We talked real quick about processed food. If you think about this, because this is something I've experienced, I haven't gotten into it a whole bunch on my channel yet, but just about everything you're buying in the store has been cut up for you already. I will tell you, when you get out in the boonies and you're living it the hard way, you need quality knives that you can sharpen with whatever's at hand. So not metals that are really too hard. We're really talking like 1075, 1095 steel.
I use
You need
carbon for
good
everything.
carbon
I
steel. I use steel
don't
for
even use
pretty much
stainless
everything
anymore.
too.
I use carbon
Pardon?
for everything. Even my pots and pans, carbon. Well, pans might be stainless, but I use carbon fry pans too. I mean,
Yeah. So think about how the people did it back in the day. Look at it. Make sure you're equipped reasonably to deal with that, and take a real look at your world, the world you live in right now, versus a world where the power went out and didn't turn back on. And if you prepare for the worst case scenario, you're really going to be in a pretty good spot, even if it comes to that.
there's been survival experts that have said beans, bullets, and band-aids.
Yes,
It
that's a
sums
good
it
way to
all
go
up.
about it.
Beans,
Yeah.
bullets, and band-aids.
hmm
It was Rollins said that. Not Henry
Jim
Rollins.
Rollins.
Yeah,
Jim
yeah,
Rolls.
yeah.
Rolls. Jim
Rolls,
Rolls.
rolls. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to give credit where credit's due, so I want to
Yeah.
throw his name.
Survival blog. That was his page for a long time. I used to read a lot when I was a
Is
younger
he still
survivalist.
doing that?
I think that he's got a lot of other people like
Okay,
donating content to
right.
the blog.
I came across him because back in the day I was working in Hollywood and we were trying to put together I was trained as a producer and screenwriter in Hollywood for a while. And we were trying to put together a TV series on what to do in like this situation. If the power went out, what would you do? How do you get home? Bug out bag. And he was one of the consultants that we were talking to at the time. And I read his book. They gave me his book to read. And that's where I got the beans, bullets, and band-aids, which is awesome. So
hmm hmm
yeah, check that out. For fans are gonna ask me where to find you at your channel. Do you mind if I tell them that?
Yeah. I'm on YouTube and TikTok really right now,
Okay.
and
Is it the
efficient
same name
in
on
the
both?
field. Yeah,
Is it the
efficient
same
in
name
the
on both?
field. Same name on both, and the content is different. It's talking about the same kind of stuff, but I don't like post the same video to both platforms.
Okay.
And for those people that are like worried about China tracking them through TikTok, like you really should be more worried about the FBI at this point in time. Like
I
I'm not
tell
scared of
people,
China.
dude, I tell people that all the time. I tell them the real reason the government it demonizes TikTok. It's not to say that TikTok's 100% safe, but it's no more worse than Facebook or any of these other social media platforms that are stealing all your information, and they are. So I say I'm more scared of my own government getting in my business than I'm worried about anything in China. But what they're really scared about, and the reason they demonize TikTok, is because you can get information there you just can't get on YouTube anymore, other social media platforms that they control heavier. There's a lot
Yeah.
of videos and a lot of content I can't find on those other places. Like, for example, all the shows I use today, the video clips, they all, almost all of them, no, I think they all came from TikTok because
Yeah.
that's where you can find the content. So
Things have really changed. We've reached a point where you have these big IT companies, American made, that are all about censoring what they don't.
nope, you cut out there just a second. He'll be back. He'll be back. I would go into a story, but he'll be back before I even finish it.
There it is. It's back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, on an interesting note, I saw Jen Psaki make a statement. This was like 3 years ago that they weren't requiring White House personnel to get and I told my kid brother, I was like, she just said it. He fact checks it. And he's like, no, the fact checkers are saying she never said that. And so
Right.
I tried to Google the video so I could find it, and it was taken down off of YouTube. It was gone. I had to go to whitehouse.gov and go through the entire transcript down to like what was probably page 20 to find
Right.
it and show him exactly what was said, which I was
Right.
right.
Right. Yeah.
It's hard to get good information these days, guys.
Yeah.
It is, man. It's being censored big time.
And that's something you learn also in intelligence is not only how to gather information, but how to sift through information, because there is a part of government that is disinformation, but it's not conspiracy theorists that are giving you disinformation. It's the fact checkers that are giving you disinformation. In fact, all the fact checkers are employed by one side. And it's the leftist side. So that should tell you everything you need to know about them. If a fact checker says it's wrong, it's more than likely right. Now, I
This
still
White
say
House actually funded a lot of those.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're funded.
Literally funded them with your tax dollars.
They're basically a propaganda source for one side. That's all it is. And they disagree with anything that disagrees with them. And that is un-American. That's not what American is about. We're about free speech. And in free speech, you have the ability to offend people, you little snowflakes. You have the ability, that's what free speech is. All this, it's hate speech. No, you have the ability to offend. That's what free speech is. And we're losing free speech to communism.
We are. Like I get comments every once in a while on my channels, people just being rude or a-holes or whatever, people don't like me. You know what?
Right.
I won't ever delete a comment because I believe in free speech.
Right.
That's just how it is, man. Like whatever.
Yep. All right. Well, I'm gonna cut it loose here. E, thanks for coming so much. I really appreciate your time, for your service to our country, for your expertise, and for you encouraging the lifestyle that you lead with the homesteading. I think is so important, and really, I mean, that's just going back to the roots of Americanism and what our country is all founded to be about: freedom of speech, freedom to live, to teach your family the way you want, you believe. And funny how those values are almost always tied up in Christianity and God. And everything we see with communism today is the opposite of that. It's removing family values. It's removing God or morality. And our society is going down a tube in a down the wash as fast as possible with that. There's a connection. You have morality, you have a strong country. You have immorality, you have trash that's going to fall apart and be taken over and destroyed. And we see that's what communism does in every country, and that's what they're trying to do here. Right now, we need a fight for freedom versus communism, and that's what we're trying to do. In fact, I'm trying to say all this now because you know what? Next year, it might be illegal to say what I'm saying right now. So that's why
They might be coming to find you, John.
That right. Well, eventually that's going to happen, but
Me too.
Regardless, I'm in Jesus's hands, and if this is how he went, then praise God. If I have to go that way, then I will feel it as an honor to be next to my Lord. So Jesus is the answer and solution to everything. Love your families. Don't let the devil pull your families apart. That's what they'll do. But anyway, everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight. E, thanks again for coming. I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
Yeah, man, you have to come
I
on
appreciate it, John.
You have to come on my bushcraft channel and do a show just on bushcraft prepping stuff and homesteading. So
yeah, that'd be fun.
I would love to have you on there and talk about that kind of stuff because I'm trying to promote that way of life. It's so important. All right, everybody, have a good night. God bless all y'all. Keep the lights on.